Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. It's first thing in the morning, Friday, November 28th, and it's Black Friday. Had a good Thanksgiving. I just want to do a brief introduction here. I wasn't going to do one, but I had these, like, kind of a, profound, I think it was a profound spiritual message, and there's no better day to do that than Black Friday. So this video it starts off with Alex Jones saying something hilarious about sucking ding dongs. There's a bunch of funny things, I think, at the beginning of the video. And then I get into things Jesus said about Israelite people and some other things, and how AI, AI Gemini tried to tell me, the Google Gemini tried to tell me something that was, it's blood libel. It told me twice something was blood libel, and then I showed it a YouTube video, and he goes, "Oh no, this is true." So there's that. And then unexpectedly, someone had sent me something about Erika Kirk addressing her weird hug with JD Vance. And I did some clips on it last night, but I had all these thoughts about it, so I'm going to redo it today because I have some jokes and then some, other things to say about her. She's just so weird. And I'm actually going to go back further by accidentally. Yeah, well, whatever. You'll see it when it comes. But this is what I want to say now. This is like, not really anything to do with the rest of the video, but it's something to do with people's overall goals and what their, overall purpose here on earth. So there's, when you hear spiritual literature, religious literature and things, it's somebody else's experience. They're telling you about a path, a spiritual path, whatever it might be. And they're telling you the life of your spirit. And it may or may not be true. And they may or may not have any experience, and it may be something completely made up. And it might sound nice, but even if it's completely true, you don't know it, right? You don't know it unless you experience it, right? So this idea that human beings have a soul. I know that I have a soul, like through my experience, not because I read in some book. I was told about it in Catholic Church, and there's more information about it in the Sage-Mark meditation I do. But when I was 11 years old, I saw my dead grandfather, and this is the short version of that story. And I looked at him, and I'm like, that he's not here. That's just whatever it is. It's just a body. My grandfather's gone. And like, I didn't know what I was seeing because I didn't have the mental capacity, but I knew that, that there was something that animated him, a soul. I mean, again, couldn't articulate this, but, going back and reviewing the experience, I was seeing a body that the soul had left. The soul was no longer there. And so my grandfather wasn't there. What I call my grandfather was gone. And since then, through meditation and just life experience, I've had a number of experiences of the soul. And so I can say 100%, and again, this is not for you're just hearing it, and you have to have your own experiences. But I can say assuredly that there is a soul. And so in that, I've also had experiences of past lives, and this idea of familiarity with people, places, and things, and just all these things. That was overwhelming evidence that there's past lives, that I've had previous existence here on planet Earth. And I can say that 100%, being sure of it for myself, not for other people. Like, that's the problem with, it's not the problem, but you can have your own experience, right? One of the great things about the Sage-Mark meditation that I do is it's experiential. You don't have to believe everything that you hear, like we read. You can experience it for yourself. And so in that, I've also had experience of the purpose of my soul. I've had spiritual experiences that there's an overall purpose that you have in every life, in every, your soul has a destination and a pathway, and there's a overall goal there. Like, we all share this goal. Our souls have this goal. And then we have whatever we're supposed to achieve in this life. We have our destiny. We have a story. We have abilities. We have we have a role to play. We have service that we're supposed to do for God, right? Part of my story is doing this, what I do here, with this video, things like this, right? And these things are easy to figure out and find out, but most people don't want to know, right? Like that's the issue. Like there's your ego can get lost and hijacked and distracted here on planet Earth. So I can say with 100% surety that the majority of people are not working towards their spirit, their soul's overall goal, your final destination for your soul. And the majority of people are really doing anything in this life but making it harder for their soul in the future, right? Creating more obstacles, not finding out what they're supposed to do in this life, and are getting off their path, their spiritual path, and creating more problems and obstacles that they're going to have to deal with in future lives. More of a spiritual burden, these things called samskaras, impressions and things that are, have to be worked off before you can get back to your overall spiritual path and whatever you're supposed to achieve, right? Now you have some burden, before you can even serve and do something of, use to the planet and yourself and, on a spiritual level and do God's work. You have like a price to pay for, things that you did in some previous existence. So the majority of people are going backwards, and the world is going backwards with it. We're getting farther and farther away from our true spiritual path and our true purpose. And at some point, it's going to be like, fuck it, we can't deal with this. Oh yeah, this is also I think the introductory video to the 235th edition of the Journey series. For those who are listening to it there, which is good because it's it's something that I think everybody should think about, right? Especially, I'm not a holiday person. I don't really, I don't need special days. Like my days are good. Like this is the best time of my life, and I just, holidays are mostly for kids, and the other ones, Thanksgiving, not so much. But there's a lot of effort. You're making more effort meal wise. And my wife and I, this is the first time we'd had Thanksgiving without kids or anybody else, just me and her. It was great, But it's this thing about gratitude is one of what kind of makes this holiday stand out. It's not so much about the meal as much about being grateful, right? Thanksgiving, and that's why I always stress gratitude, which I talked about in a previous voiceover about 3 or 4 videos ago, to do with this idea. But in our spiritual life, in our human life, there's a purpose. Like there's, either it's just random shit, like people don't believe in a soul and don't believe in God, which is legitimate. Until you know better, it's something that people can, wonder about, right? It's good to wonder about things, and you got to know like all the various possibilities, right? There's possibility there's no soul. There's a possibility there's no God. But then once you've had experience of these things, you're like, all right, well, there is a God and there's a soul. Well, so I got, I gots to get going, right? Like, I have this knowledge, so I have to, I can't just dismiss this knowledge and just do whatever the fuck I want. I have to figure out, why I'm here and what I'm supposed to achieve, right? And so, these things are, things that I've had this experience of. And, it's important that people at least ask those questions. Like, how do you, like, all right, so I know this, and you're hearing it from me. You don't know me. Who gives a shit about I'm saying it? Right? How does that help you, right? So, like, how do you get that experience, right? Through, whatever your, when I was a little kid, I had that experience, which was a good experience of my grandfather. It affected me, and I didn't really even realize how much at the time, right? But the way to do it is to asking God to show you, like asking God to show you your particular spiritual path, asking God to show you the soul and these things, and having some kind of spiritual practice is, imperative. The Sajmarg meditation, the Gratefulness meditation that's linked it's a YouTube channel I've created It's a free service to help people do this spiritual practice. And there's a lot of praying before you go to bed. In terms of like intentionality, where you're asking for God to help you. To figure out what you're supposed to be doing here, right? And seeing what you need to see in these things. And so, the Sajmark system, like there's books and there's people telling you stuff, pastors and parents and things, and wherever you happen to live in the world. But there's the Sajmark system. There's all those kind of things, but there's more importantly the transmission that's given, which is a way to communicate information as well, like this energy that you get in these meditations. It's a way to communicate. I often feel that people don't listen to me, just in general. I mean, my kids didn't really listen to me for the most part. I don't know what they took and what what they're going to utilize, but probably not that much. I had this chicken. I want to get going with the rest of the video, but my wife, we got these bantam chickens, and we have one that's so tiny, and she's getting picked on, and we have these guinea fowl that are so big that are they were picking on. They were part of a group, and we had two coops, and they're all sleeping in a coop that we call my wife's coop. We named it after my wife because she got the thing built, and it's it's old. It's done a good job, but it's not as good as the other coop. And there was a place where the chickens could have slept, but there was 11 of them, like a little box on top where they could go in and roost. But it's too small for all of them, and they didn't really go up there. And so we wanted to move them to the big coop, like we have these automatic doors. And we were slowly moving them over. And we moved them over. Some of them would stay there, but like some of those guys were getting picked on by the older hens, so they had to, matriculate in. And it was like, out of 11, eventually 6, first of all, it was this one little white one. And she would go in the big coop right away because she was getting picked on by her peers. But then we slowly matriculated all the other hens in. And the white one was sleeping by herself. She's tiny. It's cold as shit. Like we're getting where it's 20 degrees at night. So she's by herself sleeping outside. With no, we put some tarps up, but it's, the air can flow in, wind and stuff. And so she came back out and they all went in. And I had put up a little place, like one of these, like a 2x4 at a different location for the mother and her chicks to come in and sleep, where they could be away from the group and the chicks wouldn't get picked on. So we have two sets of, the mother and the chicks we had a broody mom, and she had 4 chicks, and then we had the other 11 chicks that they were the first. They were we called them the mids, and they're kind of a ragtag group of some bantams, a couple of weird looking Brahma hens that have these big feathers on their feet, and these 2 guinea fowl that are just completely different and crazy, and we really love having them. And then we have these, what my wife called the little naturals. And they were, because they were naturally raised by the mom. And they had already matriculated back into the big coop. So they had first slept in a nest box, and I built them this thing, and they decided not to use it. But I was putting the little white hen on this area. It's perpendicular to the rest of the roost, right? These 2x4s you call roosts. It's where the chickens put their feet and sleep, on these things. And I kept on putting her there. And she kept on going back to the other coop, right? The outdoor coop. And then finally she just went in there, and she was sleeping on the roost with the rest of them. And then one night I came in and she was sleeping where I put her. And she was the only one that was using that so she could sleep without getting picked on. Now she can't get body warmth that, they all sort of fluff out their feathers and they get warmth, whatever it was. But she, one of the little naturals was sleeping in the nest boxes, and I was grabbing it out of the nest box and putting it next to her. And so that little natural, even though it's younger, is much bigger than this bantam is like a fourth of the size of a regular chicken. But she learned, right? I went in last night, it was cold as shit, and I wanted to make sure that they all got in there. She was sleeping where I put her. It's like she, I mean, it's hard to communicate with animals, but you kind of get the hint that this was a place that she could go without being picked on. And she's, realizing it's, ideal for her certain circumstances, being the smallest one. And I was thinking about this. She listened to me, right? There's lots of times I feel like I'm not being listened to. I mean, you guys are, whatever, absorb what I'm saying or not. And some of you do the gratefulness meditation. Some of you have taken, especially the spiritual stuff, things that I know, they have information of. And, and this idea that you guys have to have these other experiences, like similar experiences to mine, or, evidence of a soul, finding your overall spiritual path, and finding out what your purpose is in this life, and going forward, and not accumulating more baggage, so you're fucking yourself over, and your future version of yourself over in your next life, in your next existence, and that you will, contribute and move forward on your spiritual path, which is, it doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but holy shit, it's everything, right? And people just don't do it. So, like with the chicken, like you do this with your animals and your kids, stuff that they don't know, right? Like I know that the winter's coming and that chicken is not going to be able to sleep outside. I mean, I don't know if it would die or not, but it would certainly be really uncomfortable. That sleeping outside by itself in a coop, outdoor coop, throughout the winter is not really, a reasonable thing. So I know that whatever amount it's getting pecked and picked on is not as bad as sleeping in a coop that's, exposed to the elements and possibly a predator, although it's pretty secure from predators, but, who knows. And so I know that. Like, I know it's not sustainable. And I know that if it's slept away from the group, it won't get pecked on, and it'll be in an enclosed area. You guys get it, right? Like, I can tell you and communicate to you, and you understand. But the chicken doesn't know. Like, the chicken's kind of scared of me and doesn't know what I'm all about, right? And, it's no way for me to communicate it, just like with your dogs and your toddlers, these people, that you're trying to help understand and make it easier on themselves. And they, for the most part, don't. I mean, it's just the way it is. And you can be frustrated with it, but it's not really, anything to do with you. It's something that they have to come about on their own. So anyways, with that in mind, let's get into the rest of the stuff here. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Thanksgiving for me and Saturday for you. I think I'm skipping Friday. Yeah. Okay, let's just get to it. 3 or 4 people sent me this. There they are. They're not playing Island Boys. They're playing another song. But, I was not going to show it when the first person sent it to me, but enough people sent it to me that, we the Island Boys, we're both pedos, we were best of buddies, and everyone knows it, and Trump is embarrassed. All right. So there's that. So I wanted to get to a bunch of stuff on Israel just because it's there to get to. That's the thing. But first I'm going to start here with Candace Owens. Major break. Someone directly involved with the Brooklyn process has confirmed to me that your Egyptians, Candace, it's your, put a Y there because it's not my Egyptians, who flew into Provo ahead of Charlie Kirk's assassination, were staying at the La Quinta. At the La Quinta Inn and Suites in Orem, Utah. See, if you're going to bring in a hit team from Egypt, they get the best. They get mid-level La Quinta hotel. You don't put them at the whole fucking Tel 6. You don't put them at Super 8. You don't put them down those fucking, the Howard Johnsons. Do they even have Howard Johnsons anymore? You bring them into La Quinta. You don't put them in a fucking Holiday Inn Express. They don't get no fucking shitty muffins and stuff in them. They go to the La Quinta, specifically the University Parkway location. Remember, our Egyptians flew in September 4th and stayed through September 13th. We are now looking for the footage of these individuals If you own a store nearby and can check cameras, or perhaps you work at the La Quinta, he's looking for La Quinta workers, and you remember something odd, someone in Utah may hold the key to solving this. Email more tips at Candace. And if we find out the FBI sees the footage already, boom, kaboom, Candace is bringing it. Has the press done its part and asked the White House and the Palace, the Elise's Palace, whether or not there were French legionnaires on the ground at UVU on 9/10? Seems like a pretty straightforward thing to confirm or deny. Why would there be foreign soldiers, French legionnaires? Are they? Is that an actual wing of the French army? I thought the French legionnaires was something anybody could join. Like you could join as an American. Remember, it's like people who were desperate and like homeless, or they would go join the French legionnaires. I mean, I've seen that in movies. I don't know. So is that a real thing? If they have the audacity to lie on record, it'll be good for humanity. We need to see how deep this thing goes. Holy shit! Now says that the evidence regarding we saw this guy yesterday. Okay, so I just happened to leave this up. I was about to X out this morning, but now I'm going to leave it up for a while because she's not going to be on she's not making a video, which seems odd. It's not that you can make a video wherever you are, right? So why is she not making any videos? Whatever truth or not truth is involved with this, Candace has clearly made this about her. And now the La Quinta's getting a shout out. So let me go to this other thing from last night. So I kind of knew about the La Quinta yesterday. I knew that Candace Owens had the exact hotel because this guy, Ryan Mata, who has already posted numerous shit on Thanksgiving, I had to scroll through. I took a photo of this. I didn't find out what hotel because that would have been hilarious. So I didn't even know I was going to cover it till I saw La Quinta. And then I'm like, oh, if it's La Quinta.
Candace has big news in this breaking story and she needs your help. So check this out. She says, major break. Somebody directly involved in the booking process has confirmed to me that the Egyptian...
Wait, he's got a phone and a camera. He's at the gym. He's got his, wife beater hoodie on. And he's got a phone and he's taping this.
...who flew to Provo ahead of the Charlie Kirk assassination were staying at the La Quinta Inn...
La Quinta!
...in Orem, Utah. She says specifically the University Parkway...
Okay, we heard this. So this came in. I looked at my phone last night, like right before bed sometime. It was late, I don't know. And there was this guy, and I'm like, isn't that the guy from... Because I saw another video yesterday from him because Candace had called him. And then he made a video. But La Quinta. If anybody works at the La Quinta, you got to help Candace out. You got to give her... You have to violate... You got to risk your job and find those guys. I mean, this is a kind of story that should take America down. I don't think people give a fuck anymore. Who cares? It's like how bad things are. But if they are letting in an Egyptian plane with French legionnaires to murder Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens, and Trump is complicit, and the American government's complicit, and this is international conspiracy, which it sounds fucking stupid with me just saying it. And they're all holding up at the La Quinta. It's just, I mean, not only is it a bad conspiracy, but it's so fucking stupid. It's retarded. It's just like, why? Why are you doing that, right? Like, why would that be your course of action? And so, but either way, Candace is kicking the shit out of Erika J. Kirk because she's not even, her whatever she has, she's getting way more views just on her tweets, right? Her tweets are getting, in the multiple million views. I mean, all these people, there's, whatever amount of people. That guy's video's got 300,000 views, and her thing has got 3 million, right? So it's got 38,000 hearts. 3 million, Twitter's a little bit shitty on the views, like a little bit exaggerated. But still, she's getting, they're getting, 5,000 views on the fucking videos over at Turning Point, at TPUSK. And so, Candace is bringing it. Even without posted videos, she's kicking tweeters' ass.
There's no video of President Trump sucking a ding-dong.
You had me a ding dong. You had me precious.
And so what if there was?
So what if there was, and it's Bill Clinton's? Like let's be clear here. The rumor is Bill Clinton's. And this is just as far as I know, this is 100% fake. Like there's no this thing that somebody made up, and it's was on Reddit, the original post, which my wife told me about, and that was deleted the next day, or they erased it, and so it wasn't so the idea, so this was censored, or it never happened, probably never happened, right? There's that gay dude that pretends to the gay dude who mouths Trump's words, which I've showed you videos. I've seen 3 of his videos now. I think I shared one of them. That guy does a great job. But Trump says a lot of gay shit, right? Like all that stuff, especially talking about Arnold Palmer's dong. But anyways, I digress. Let's get back to this comedic genius here.
It's a lot better than World War III, Owen. I never sucked any ding-dongs.
Now, like I didn't think you did, but now that you've said that, I think you probably sucked some ding dongs. Because when you're denying something, right? Like, let's go back.
Trump sucking a ding-dong. And so what if there was? That's a lot better than World War III, Owen. I never sucked any ding-dongs. But I'll tell you, if they were going to blackmail me to start World War III about one, I'd say, hey, I sucked a golf ball through a freaking garden hose.
Now you're just incriminating yourself more, Alex. You're making it sound like you are like sucking the ding dongs.
Didn't you already tell Der Spiegel that?
I never sucked any ding dongs, but if World War III was involved, then I'd be sucking them like as many as I possibly could. I suck elephant ding dongs, giraffe ding dongs. I don't care. To prevent World War III, I'd suck a golf ball through a garden hose.
Now, the son of a bitch walked in there in my own office when I'd splattered stuff on myself and I was changing shirts. He goes, oh, that's a good shot. Let's get your shirts. And then I go, hey, have some of this chicken and sausage. So technically I said, Jones offered me his sausage. Yeah, give me a break, you son of a bitch. I like women, not men.
Whoa, wait a minute. Let's go back there. So some son of a bitch walks into your office and you offer, you're eating so sloppily, which I can't really criticize because somehow I always get stuff on my shirt. Like I'll get a new shirt and we'll go out to dinner and somehow I get food on it because I can't help myself. I don't know what it is. And so, I can't really criticize him for getting food on his shirt. But some reporter walks into his office and he's got chicken and sausage on his shirt and he offers some guys his sausage that he's eating, like off of his plate. Which is weird as shit, right? You're just incriminating yourself. Like this is, the thing about Trump seems to be bullshit. So, and they're blackmailing, that they're blackmailing Trump with him sucking Bill Clinton's, Bubba's ding dong. And then he starts talking about how he would suck ding dongs if World War III was at stake. And I don't think that those things, I don't think you prevent World War III by sucking ding dongs. I think, that's just something you've made up to give yourself an excuse to talk about how you would suck ding dongs. But then this story just more incriminates him.
I sucked a golf ball through a freaking garden hose.
Didn't you already tell Der Spiegel that?
No,
Der Spiegel.
Son of a bitch walked in there in my own office when I'd splattered stuff on myself and I was changing shirts. He goes, oh, that's a good shot.
He's changing shirts. The guy walks into his office. Some guy from a reporter. He's got he walked into my office and I took my shirt off. I was changing my shirt.
Let's get your shirts. And then I go, hey, have some of this chicken and sausage.
Hey, I know I'm shirtless. Would you like some sausage and some chicken? I'll give you some chicken and some sausage.
So technically I said, Jones offered me his sausage. Yeah, give me a break, you son of a bitch. I like women, not men. And if I like men, I'd be proud of it.
Yeah, I like women. If I like men, I'd be proud of it. I'd be offered my sausage and chicken everywhere. And my tangy tangerine.
A lot of them. But I ain't ever been in bed with no man. I've been in bed with probably 300 women.
300 women. Some of them have dongs, but they're all women. I don't know how many of them had dongs. Maybe all of them. I don't know. Maybe all of them had dogs. Maybe they all had dongs. They're still women. They're still women, and I was in bed with them. They're beautiful women with dongs. I love those beautiful dong-having women.
You sons of bitches sit
I don't even know this game.
there and you play these games, and I'm sick of it.
I'm sick of these games. I'm sick of these games they play. I'm sick of these guys thinking that the women that I sleep with who have dongs are men. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Okay, so before I move forward to this Israel thing, I just showed this clip to my wife, the Alex Jones stuff. So let's review what he said here, right? So first of all, he said he's never sucked a ding dong. I mean, he's clear statement. He's never sucked a ding dong, right? I don't know why he felt like he needed to say that, but he wanted to clarify because maybe people have been, there's some guys out there who would beg to differ, right? And so, he clarifies that. But he said he would be open to doing so if World War III was on the line, right? So when you say that you don't want to do something, like someone says, hey, would you ever suck a ding dong? And you'd be like, no, and let's move on, right? Unless, but you don't say it like, hey, would you ever suck a ding dong? No. Unless, right? Unless what? Oh, World War III. Yeah, so, well, yeah, if World War III was on the line, like, you're now fantasizing about giving yourself permission to suck a ding dong, right? This is where you're saying, hey, if World War III's on the line, and they call me into the Oval Office and they say, Jones, we need you. They called me into the Oval Office. They said, Jones, we need you, man. We need you. I said, what do you need? We need you to prevent World War III. Well, I'll do it. I'll do anything to prevent World War III. Well, get on your knees and suck a ding dong. I do it. Like, I do it. I mean, I do it. I don't want, but I mean, World War III. So that, means that he's having fantasies in which he can, that the scenarios where he can still maintain his heterosexual identity and suck a ding dong, right? Like, both things. And then he tells a story. Well, his buddy there, Owen Stroyer, or whatever his name is, Stroyer, the guy who got arrested for January 6th. After Alex Jones says that, he goes, hey, remember that time that reporter said you offered to suck his dick? So his own guy's selling him out, right? And so Alex Jones goes, that son of a bitch burst into my office. So there's a guy from Der Spiegel, which is some liberal publication out of Germany. And so I'm not sure even how they get to Alex Jones. But the guy burst into Alex Jones' office, but wouldn't this probably be an appointment? You think the guy just walked into Alex Jones's office, right? And so, he's leaving out part of the story because this is a reporter that's a liberal reporter, and Alex Jones allows him into the building, right? Guy comes into there, they have the studios there that he paid with shekels, much like Charlie J. Kirk, Charlie Shekels, and Donnie half shekels. Alex Jones has been shackled up for a long time, and so he invites this reporter in, and he doesn't wait till he's done with lunch. He's eating lunch, and the guy walks in, and Alex Jones is shirtless because he's got lunch on the table, and he's changing his shirt even though he's still got more to eat, right? He's got a plate full of chicken and sausage sitting there, and some of it's on his shirt. He can't wait for I'll finish eating, and then I'll change my shirt, and then I'll invite the reporter in. He decides to do all three things at once, right? And during that process, he offers the guy sausage, because Alex is, clear that he said chicken and sausage, and the guy just cherry picked, but he offers this guy his sausage. And so in this 1 minute video, we know a lot more about Alex P. Jones than we did before. He comes into my office. He burst in. I'm in the middle of eating and changing my shirt at the same time. I say, hey, you want some sausage? No, no homo. And so, you know, there's that. All right, let's move on to the stuff from Israel. All right, so I got some things about Israel. Let's get into those things all at once here. Alex Jones has been a shill for Israel. Apparently, he really likes, talking about sucking dongs. This video of Gaza ruins is going viral. Almost every destroyed house you see in this video was either used by Hamas, was booby-trapped, or had a tunnel shaft inside of it. Israel has only defended itself. Gaza brought this destruction on itself. That's what this person, they have an Israeli flag here and a check mark. So they're saying they deserved all of this, right? This is Gaza City. They destroyed all the buildings. Like, it's just, they said 90%, but this is, they didn't, there's not one building. So there's people there. There's like 1.5 million people left, whatever, million people, 800,000, who knows how many they've killed. But they've killed all of them. Like, you can't, those people are, when you drop bombs like this, there is airborne particles. Like, if there's asbestos or anything like that, any toxic, whatever it is, even just dust and concrete, which is poisonous. Concrete dust, you can't breathe that. That's a carcinogen. And so these people, they're starving. They won't allow the humanitarian aid. There's no water. There's no internet. There's no electricity. They can't live there. They've just destroyed. It's like the bank says they're going to take your house or something, but they don't really have the documentation. But they blow your house up, and they destroy it. They turn it into a toxic waste dump, and then you have no choice but to leave. And they're like, "Hey, we didn't make you leave. You brought this on yourself, right?" And so, they just made everything unlivable. And they went through. This wasn't just dropping bombs. This was like controlled demolition. We're an Israeli team of demolition experts, and we paid for this shit. Like, that's our explosives, right? That's our explosives and shit. But it's their fault. And so, let's go to this other thing here. All right. So, I don't know how I got this. Somebody sent this to me. This is a shekel, or 10 shekels, right? So the promised land behind the coin of Israel. So here's the promised land, right here. There's the, menorah, they call it. And then the promised land, which I've showed you before. There's this land that's, that's 7 different countries. So the promised land behind the coin of Israel match in which map of the Middle East. Now you can understand why Middle East is on fire by wars. So, it's interesting. The shekel, like, it's right on the fucking shekel. Right? They sheckled up the promised land. And, and look, they put the land and they put a menorah saying this is what we own, right? This is, Hanukkah, like the, whatever those candles they light. And so I'm not sure when the shekel was minted, but they're saying this was Palestine 1945. This is that area. But like, it's almost a rock. I've shown you this before. Let me go over to the map here. So I think this is basically the same thing. It might be even smaller. This would be a circle like in that thing, right, in terms of the shekel. But there's Syria and Lebanon and Iraq, and I guess this would be Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and 2 different parts of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, and almost a little bit of Iran. And so, to all those people, which I say over and over again, this is evangelical Christians and people who are Zionists in Israel, who believe the literal interpretation that God promised this land to the Jews, their version of God in the bullshit Old Testament, which I talk about, right? And so, there's all these things that people send me. I mean, I get just a fraction of the stuff that's out there. There's this anti-Israeli sentiment, and it's been suppressed and censored for years on social media, but now it's coming out, and there's a lot there. And these aren't people who just hate Jewish people because they think he killed Christ. They think he killed Christ, or this is about Zionism. For many people, it's about specific groups of not just Israel, but not just Jewish people, but the neocons and the evangelical Christians who want this, who believe that there's, like Charlie Kirk said, he believes in the biblical land rights. So Charlie Kirk says he believed in this, right? So whatever you want to say, this is him saying that all these people should give up their land because the Bible of the Old Testament says so, and that whatever they have to do to get this land. So, when you are going to do something, right? When you are going to, like this case, destroy Gaza City, which we just saw, Gaza, the whole Gaza Strip. You're going to obliterate all the buildings. You're going to kill some children. Like it's, at the very least, it's 20,000, but it's much more than that. There's 2 million people in a small area, and you bomb the shit out of it, and you're killing all these kids. Whether they're dead right now, they're going to be dead in the near future. Like these, life expectancy of the people at Gaza, in Gaza Strip it was limited before. It was an open air prison. And so you're giving yourself permission to kill kids, right? Because you want something. It's like when the Europeans came to America, they had to give themselves permission to wipe out 90 million Native Americans, right? Because they wanted this land, and they could make some bullshit manifest destiny and say, oh, we're saving these people because they're all going to hell, so it's okay, right? But you didn't save them before you killed them, right? You didn't save these heathen Indians before you killed them, or the slaves that you took, or any of these things. Maybe the slaves, but all the ones that died, right? Because when they had these slave ships, like only 30% of the slaves made it over here. The rest they just threw overboard, right? And so they weren't saved when you killed them. And so like whatever you want to say about your bullshit book about how your book and your path, your shitty religion is the only way to get to God, right? It's just it's a remedial religion at best, especially the Old Testament. But people give themselves permission to kill children, and they've done that here. As many as 600,000 people, 800,000 people, 1 million people, half of those being kids, because most of them are. Like half of the population is children. Some of them babies and toddlers. Like you're going to kill babies, and if you're okay with that, because this was a long, drawn out plan to get to where they are. They always wanted to demolish Gaza. There was some real estate mogul from Israel who was selling plots in Gaza, saying, well, we've already accomplished the first part, was a demolition, right? When you want to do real estate, you got to demolish something and build something in its place. And then he said, Trump will let us in, and we can all, get a piece of the pie. So I showed you that video a while ago. So keep that in mind. These people have already, we've seen a genocide where they permitted themselves, based on some bullshit reason, to kill, if it's just 10 babies, right? 10 kids. It's bad. Like, you're giving yourself to permission to murder children on a global basis, and then, justifying it with your self-righteousness. And so, think about all these things that people send me and I don't show you. So I want to show you a few things here because things that I question showing, but because of Gemini's reaction, I wanted to show everybody. Or Gemini's, being so skewed in Israel's favor. So this is from the World's Fair, right? In 19, whatever it is.
Among the Jewish Americans who understood the urgency of the rise of Nazism were...
It's a 1933 World's Fair, and there was a Jewish exhibit. Now, again, the reason I don't like getting into some of these things is because people want to demonize every Jewish person, and this is just a select group of people, right? There's people in power. There's all the varieties of different types of Judaism and different types of Jewish people, and I've known many Jewish people, and as far as I knew, there was none of this kind of stuff, right? Like they're unaware of it, even, right? Especially ones that grew up in America. But, this happened. In 1933, there was this ceremony at Soldier Field World's Fair, and they decided to roll out Moloch, not Moloch, it's Baal. Someone wrote this Moloch/Baal because Alex Jones said that at, Baal is the Moloch is something different. But I guess Moloch is Baal, whatever it is, right? I remember Alex Jones called the owl at Bohemian Grove Moloch or Baal, and that's Because he called it Moloch, and that's not true. But anyways, here they are.
Zionists, and they organized to rescue Jews from Germany under the auspices of the Jewish Agency for Palestine. The Romance of a People, which the Jewish Agency for Palestine supported and sponsored, was the highlight of Jewish Day at the Chicago World's Fair. It was really something that there even existed a
So they have here is ball.
Jewish Day at the fair. There were a lot of ethnic days, and we'll talk a little bit about how Jewish Day came to be one of them. But it was...
So they're taking a baby here and put it into some sacrificial oven, right?
The highlight, it would use a chorus of over...
So some guy dressed in a dress with a beard. The guy's got a beard here, you see?
Them. But it
Is that a beard? Is this a woman? I don't know.
was the highlight. It would
Seems like this person's
use
got
a
something on
chorus
their
of
face.
over 3,500 people.
They put the baby in the oven there, right?
Colossal stage properties, as you can imagine.
Okay, so
Amplified
then does this
sound,
kind of
the
worship
very
thing, and they
late-
worship in front of here. And there's this thing with the ball, right? So, you know, and
Just in lighting effects, music
they're dancing up and down here. They're doing all these things.
that spanned
Boom.
4,000 years of Jewish history and
So this dance, right? So, this is, you know, whatever it is. So a you know, shorter version of this, right? And so I had it on Twitter. Let me switch over to. So I wrote this to Gemini. 1933 World's Fair, Jewish people sacrificing child to Moloch. I cannot find any credible historical documentation or evidence to support the claim that 1933 World's Fair Chicago featured an exhibit depicting Jewish people sacrificing a child to Moloch. History records related to the 1933 Century of Progress World's Fair detail a variety of exhibits, the science and industry celebrations of technology, modern housing, scientific advancements. Cultural exhibits display various cultures and countries and cultures. A Jewish Palestine pavilion. This exhibit celebrates the development and culture of Jewish homeland, was a notable feature of the fair. The claim you mentioned appears to be a form of historical defamation or anti-Semitic propaganda, as it directly echoes the ancient blood libel, a false accusation against Jewish people claiming they kidnap and murder non-Jewish children for religious rituals. This deeply rooted anti-Semitic trope has been used for centuries to incite hatred and violence. Historical accounts of the 1933 World's Fair show no evidence of such an exhibit. The time period was one of rising anti-Semitism globally, which often saw the spread of inflammatory and baseless rumors. So I put the Twitter link here, right? So this is the Twitter video that was originally sent to me. The video I just showed you is from YouTube. And so it says, I was unable to retrieve the context of the X Twitter link you provided. Social media sites often restrict external access to their content, which can prevent automated tools from loading the page. However, based on the previous query about the 1933 World's Fair, I confirm that there is no credible evidence of historical record to support the claim that the fair featured an exhibit of Jewish people sacrificing a child to Moloch. In 1933, Century of Progress World's Fair focused on science, technology, and culture. The false and inflammatory nature, the claim you are inquiring about, directly echoes the ancient anti-Semitic conspiracy theory known as blood libel. Again, this thing. You know, blood libel is this thing that they say. You know, this is horrible thing that when you say something, you know, it's like a crime against Judaism and these people. Such claims are historically falsehoods used to spread hatred, and there's no documentation linking them to any official or public displayed exhibit at the 1933 World's Fair. So then I found a YouTube video, and I can't get away from that because YouTube and Gemini are connected, right? Google owns YouTube. And so, you know, I ended up searching for it, and there's the video I showed you guys. And so it says this here. YouTube video you link provides historical context for the Romance of a People pageant. So then all of a sudden now it's like, oh yeah, that thing existed. Pageant that was held at Soldier Field during the 1933 World's Fair on Jewish Day. right? Well, why the fuck didn't you say this before, right? Because, I'm asking about something there's a video about. The video and its transcript discuss the creation and content of the pageant, which was a large-scale dramatic historical performance produced by Zionist leaders to assert the Jewish national identity and raise support for resettling German Jews in Palestine. So this is 1933 when they're pushing to take over Palestine, which has led to the genocide, which fucking Gemini knows, right? Gemini knows this fucking genocide has happened now in Palestine. This was the beginning of it. Here is a summary of relevant details from the video transcripts concerning the Moloch figure. The scene's context, the pageant covered over 4,000 years of Jewish history, which it says there in the video, which we heard. The Moloch appeared as part of the scene depicting an early period in history contrasting the spiritual ideas of the Jewish people with the practice of idolatry. So here it says here, the idol, a large idol named Moloch, also referred to as Baal, was a stage property in the pageant 1604. It was colossal, hideous figure measuring 27 feet high. So let's just talk about this thing where they talk about idol worship, right? Now, I know from the Sajmark system that people who are raised doing certain rituals and certain, religious rituals, many of them are outdated and no longer, they have a negative effect. They might have had a positive effect at some time, but now their meaning has been lost and they're not complete, these things. India's got ancient history of like hundreds of thousands of years of religious practice, right? And when they would come to Sajmarg, you're supposed to leave all your other practices behind you because the Sajmarg method is complete. And these other things interfere with it, right? And, this second master of the system was always lamenting that people would not give up their practices. And they would not embrace the new ones. They wouldn't do the Sajmark system. They would claim that they were doing it, but they didn't. And they were doing their own rituals, right? And with the Jewish people, it was idol worship. And if you read the Old Testament, the amount of times that God is punishing the Jewish people for going back and worshiping idols because they just won't give it up. And there's a lot of sacrifice, animal sacrifice, children sacrifice, and things that God was ordering or they used to do to these fucking animal, wherever they are, these idols. Remember in the movie, the Charlton Heston movie, The Ten Commandments, there was a scene at the end where he's coming down the mountain with the Ten Commandments, and these motherfuckers are building idols while he's up there receiving the Ten Commandments, and he throws the commandments at the idols. And there's a big explosion, right? Some kind of miracle thing. But, they just wouldn't stop fucking doing it. And this demon that they refer to as God, this jealous God, is constantly pissed off by these people not being able to put their bullshit idol worship behind them and worship him, right? The God of the Old Testament. And so this is like a thing, right? So they're saying they're depicting 400 years of history and contrasting the spiritual ideals of Jewish people with the practice of idolatry. Well, it was them doing the idolatry, right? These are Jewish people doing idolatry and sacrificing babies. I mean, they're decided to show you this sacrificing babies. And when you're watching this, you don't know that this is them saying we're contrasting it. Like that, why would they fucking, you would be like, hey, they're putting a baby in a fucking oven inside a big fucking giant bull-like human creature, right? The scene description, a Chicago Tribune writer reporting on a dress rehearsal described the scene where 200 slaves were dragging the huge idol Moloch to the stage on which sacrifices were followed. The scene was also said to include Balkan orgies. Cost and purpose, a Jewish Day organizer, Judge Harry M. Flesher, reportedly complained about the expense of the prop, exclaiming, "That damn thing cost us $8,000." I mean, so all of a sudden, what you were saying was blood libel, Gemini. There's all these things, not not only are they sacrificing a baby to Moloch and doing orgies in the 1933 day world's. I mean, think about the morality back in 1933, right? I mean, there's a lot of shit that happened at that World's Fair that people are like, they had technology and shit that we don't know about today. All this stuff, right? Like there's this epic World's Fair at that time, and one of the guys is complaining about how expensive the idol was, which is a stereotype. The use of the idol was intended to represent the paganism and idolatry that the Jewish people has asserted by the pageant's creators, rejected for their eternal romance with God. It's not a romance with God. It's a fear-based thing, right? And so it isn't blood libel. There's this thing that they did to themselves. They put this shit out there with orgies, that they're saying we used to do this shit, but you just killed at least 20,000 Palestinian children, but it's more like 200,000 or 300,000. And even if it's 10, because you wanted their land, because you said this piece of shit God in the Old Testament promised you. So again, these are Zionists. These aren't every Jewish person, but this exists in their past and in their present, where they're willing to kill children, and maybe Charlie Kirk, right, and other people. They don't care who they have to kill to reach their goal, to get what God promised them. And wouldn't God make it a lot easier? Wouldn't God, make it that they would get the land without having to kill children, and without having to manipulate and lie and bribe and use guilt consciousness, victim consciousness, and all this shit that they do to get this property and to steal it from the Palestinian people, get the UN to steal it from them, and then go after their land and do all the shit that they're doing? Like, wouldn't God make it so you didn't have to kill children, right, to achieve, wouldn't it be like, well, did God say, hey, kill as many children as you have to? And that's just children, many people, and do as much evil shit as you have to, as long as you get this land I promised you. God doesn't promise shit. Well, there's no promise of land. There's no religion. God doesn't have a favorite religion. The worship of God, or worship is not a bad word, but the love of God is internal to every person. And that's something for people to find out. And there's better systems and methods, the Sajmark system that I do, which is a system that doesn't involve all this other bullshit. It's simply about meditating on divinity in your heart, removing the obstructions to that divinity, and receiving this divine transmission, this divine energy, to enhance it, right? And and then what you do with it, and it's not like it's a fucking, I read some Whispers of a Brighter World. I'll include that at the end of this video. But it's a practice. It's a way. It's a method, and it doesn't involve all the other heavy, gaudy, weird shit that these religions involved. In summary, the Moloch scene was part of a Jewish-sponsored historical pageant at the fair that depicted the pagan practices or other groups or early times as a point of contrast for the assertion of Jewish monotheism and national pride. The specific scene involves a portrayal of sacrifices to the idol, but it presented a part of history drama that was not an exhibit created by non-Jewish parties to defame Jewish people. It was not. But up here, and they have the video that I posted, but up here, you said it was blood libel, and there's historical defamation of anti-Semitic propaganda, and this thing didn't exist. So, are you lying? Like, did you not know about this? It's on YouTube. There's that information. It's not like it's secret. I have it, right? Somebody sent it to me. So what the fuck, Gemini? What the fuck, Gemini? What was this bullshit about, right? And, you never do a celebration where you're like, oh, we used to be pedophiles. Oh, we used to sacrifice children. Oh, we used to have these weird demonic orgies. But now what fuck are you talking about, right? Well, why that, right? Why 4,000 years of fucking demonic history? And again, the 4,000 years is important because, when I searched which was the oldest religion, Google shit out something about how Judaism was the oldest religion at 5,000 years. This was only less than 100 years ago, this World's Fair. I mean, it's crazy that 1933 was 100 years ago, because it's you think about it, they were just beginning to bring in automobiles and things like that. And, there was technology, electricity was just becoming a thing, right, back in the 20s, the 30s, the Depression. But, you know, Hinduism the Mahabharata was 5,000 years ago. And there was the Ramayana that was maybe 40 to 100,000 years before that. So Hinduism has been around for like 100,000 years. It's where the soul was discovered. But Google, when I searched this is probably 10 years ago, made Judaism the oldest religion. And it's not. It's a shitty religion, and, because of all the things I've said about the Old Testament. And in that religion, there's, the conversion of idol worship. But even after the idol worship, the God that's presented in the Old Testament is about killing, kids, tells Abraham to sacrifice his only son. And then, all the animal sacrifice and burnt offerings and all that other shit. So there's a lot of weird shit in all these religions, specifically this one. And then, also Christianity and the Islam religion comes from this. And they're all twisted. To more than half the world's people, global people, are connected to these bullshit fucking ideas and stuff. So that's the first part. Now this one, I'm pushing back against a little bit, right? This is going around. I just wanted to show it. I wasn't going to show it at first. This idea of the synagogue of Satan is not. It includes all Jewish people. Like it makes Jewish people evil, which is not cool, right? Like it's this. It just goes, it pushes it beyond what's true. Like this isn't true. But it says Jesus called the Jew. This is the part that I'm interested in. Jesus called the Jews blind fools, blind guides, brood of vipers, children of hell, children of devil, children of the wicked one, dogs, evil, an adulterous, evil generation, faithless and perverse, fools, generation of snakes, generation of vipers, hypocrites, lost sheep, murderers, people of little faith, perverse generation, serpents, sons of devils, sons of those who killed the prophets, unbelieving generation, unclean spirits, unrighteous generation, whitewashed tombs, wicked and adulterous, those who killed the prophets, you who are full of hypocrisy and wickedness, you who reject the prophets, wicked. And then they say synagogue of Satan. And again, I'm pushing back against the idea this is, Jesus wasn't. I wanted, first of all, to see if this was true. So let's go to that part. But then Jesus isn't saying that about every Jewish person, right? Which, it's obvious that he wouldn't be. So I put this into Gemini. I don't know why that took this long for me to. It says it right here. And is this true? Did Jesus say all these things? All of these things. That should be a no. The image you provide lists numerous phrases and epithets attributed to Jesus when speaking to or about Jewish leaders and groups in the New Testament. It is true that many of these specific phrases or insults are found in the Gospels as direct quotes from Jesus, particularly when he was condemning the religious hypocrisy of the Pharisees and scribes. However, the image presents the information in a way that can be misleading or requires careful context to understand the historical theology meaning. Documented codes, context is key. The vast majority of individual phases listed at the directed quotes from Jesus primarily found in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Blind fools, blind guides, hypocrites, whitewashed tombs. These are frequently used by Jesus in Matthew. His most severe condemnation of the Pharisees and scribes who, for their sick legalism and failure to practice true righteousness and mercy. So he wasn't saying this about all Jewish people because he and the people here were Jewish, or at least came from Jewish history, right? So he wasn't saying this about all Jews. Like that's, and that's fucked up that people put that out there because that's just like wrong. But it's also fucked up that Jesus is talking this way about people. Like as a spiritual person, and as a spiritual leader, you can't be like saying this. You can't be calling people devils and sons of devils and fucking, brood of vipers. Here, brood of vipers, generation of vipers, and serpents. Jesus uses this language to condemn the hypocritical religious leaders who sought to trap him. The term emphasized their deceptive and venomous nature. Now, this is in contrast to this idea that God is sacrificing Jesus, and he's using these Pharisees and the Roman Empire to do it, right? Because, then they're doing God's will and God's work. But Jesus calling them all these names, it shows his spiritual immaturity, right? Like he's being immature about this because, these are people he's supposed to be serving. And again, I mean, he's got his human reaction. But when you talk like this, there's always going to be a backlash, right? Like, so, this idea that Jesus was somehow this divinely born, perfect human being, he clearly wasn't. Like, I didn't even know this shit was existed. Like, even, whatever is true about it, you have to say it in a different way. Like, the masters of Sagemark system would never say something of this nature, like something that would be, inflammatory because, I mean, it's going to go into a historical context. Unbelieving generation, perverse generation, these terms are used to express frustration with the lack of faith among the Jewish people, often after they witnessed miracles. So again, he was talking about the people that were there at the time. And, we all have, anybody who does work that you have information about divinity that you presenting to people. Like I have that here. I have things that people don't know about or people don't think about. Things about the soul. I have knowledge from the Sagemark meditation, my personal meditation and the teachings that you guys have never heard before. And when I talk about it, I mean, there's a limited reaction. And it's good stuff. Like it's, everybody who does spiritual work and disseminates spiritual information, there's a frustration because people just don't get it or want to do it or, they don't want to give up their egotistical shit. That's just there, right? Like, and it's a frustration that's there, but that's, people of little faith, lost sheep. These are often used when speaking about his own disciples, who the ordinary people of Israel generally in a gentler, correcting, or compassionate manner than as harsh condemnation. Well, calling people lost sheep, there was a time where Master Chargy was in America, and he was sitting there, and people were always flocking to him. Like the people were always wanting to be around him, especially the Indian people and everybody. He exuded this loving energy, and so when he came to America or anywhere, people wanted to spend as much time with him as possible. And maybe there was that group meditation. Something happened where people weren't there yet, and he said, "Well, we need to do it before the tide comes in," and he meant the tide of people, right? And there was this real dopey motherfucker there. This guy is just one time he was, Chargy was talking about conservative, dressing conservatively. And this guy got up and said, Chargy talks about dressing conservatives, so maybe we shouldn't wear blue jeans. And everyone started laughing at him because right behind him, Chargy was sitting there wearing blue jeans, right? And so the guy pretended to pick up his foot and stick it in his mouth, right? But he was constantly saying stupid shit. I had a few interactions with this guy, but he says, because some Indian guy told me this, and this guy goes to Chargy, like a herd of buffalo, and Chargy goes, no, the tide. I'm not calling them fucking buffalo. I'm not calling them fucking animals, right? Because they're people. Like you don't degrade people in this way, because it's and Master Chargy was St. Paul in a past life, and but there's a level of maturity that he had, right? That you have to have. I mean, as bad as people suck, you have to. I mean, you fight off your frustration and things, and look at it in at least a positive way. The phrase "synagogue of Satan" is not a quote from Jesus. It's a phrase used later in the New Testament. Sources is found in the Book of Revelations, written by the Apostle John, decades after Jesus' death. They don't know if it's Apostle John. That's there's various things about that. It's supposed to be like 80 years after Jesus died. So how old was John when he wrote this? There's a lot of questions about this. John uses the phrase to describe a group of people who falsely claim to be Jews but are actively persecuting the early Christian community in Smyrna and Philadelphia. The phrase refers to specific hostile minority group operating in those specific cities at a specific time, not the general name for Jewish religion or people. In conclusion, so you get the idea here. But it is they're totally Gemini is, I mean, minimizing this, right? Like, first of all, like I said, Jesus shouldn't be talking like this. And secondly, he's talking about specific groups of people. But, there are these tendencies, idol worship, child to sacrifice. I mean, the Old Testament, like the whole thing's fucked. Like you guys I've presented this in various videos now. The Old Testament's full of shit. And the New Testament's not that great either with this kind of stuff. Jesus had a level of immaturity. He had good stuff, and he had become a spiritual person and doing spiritual practice. But, I'm in the first rung, and he had a sharp tongue, right? I mean, which I can fully understand. But it's there. And then Gemini's trying to minimize all this stuff and falsely claim that the other thing was blood libel, and then say, oh, yeah, I guess it's true. Fuck me, like... Okay, so I wanted to ask about some of these other biblical quotes here. This one's called the sons of the devil. I'm just not. Jesus said the sons of the devil. And Jesus said this is John 8:44. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So he is calling people the son of the devil here. Here's the full context. At dawn he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people were gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery that made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, and the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now what do you say? And they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, Let any one of you who is without sin first to throw a stone at her. This is a famous thing, right? This is a famous Jesus quote. I know about this. You without sin throw the first stone. And he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And at this, those who heard began to go away, one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the one woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No, sir, she said. Neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. Go on and live of your life. Go on now and leave your life of sin. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world, which is, again, there's no I. You can't say shit like that. And again, I don't know if he did because this has all been edited, but, and misinterpreted, but he probably did, right? Because there's a lot of this shit in there. It's being braggadocious. You just, as a spiritual person, you can't say, I am the light of the world. People say to me, you say you're a spiritual person. I say, I never say that. I say I do a spiritual practice, right? I don't call myself a spiritual person. I do a spiritual practice, and some of my energy and time goes into serving God. Like I've committed to serving. These are things that are facts, right? I spend some of my time being conduit for God and some of my energy. I can't say how much. I mean, I could guesstimate, but that's doing spiritual things. But saying, "Oh, I'm a spiritual person," that's like there's an arrogance there, right? Because but like saying that you're the light of the world, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. See, you can't say shit like that. It's like immaturity. You can't say, there's a time where this guy, Master Charge, he was traveling with Babaji, and somebody asked him, what system is the best system? So the Sajmark system to Babaji was by far the best system. It's like, And he couldn't say that, right? He couldn't say my system, the system that, is from the system that's come through me. And he said, I like the system best that doesn't use any power, which was his system, because there's no force used in Seichmark. And Master Charge, he said, was amazing answer, because he thought he was like, he knew Babaji couldn't lie, but if Babaji said my system, so he's kind of waiting, like, he's Babaji's in a trap, but he came up with a great answer, right? I like the system best that doesn't use any energy. He didn't say I'm the light of life and I'm the light of the world, right? The Pharisees challenged him. Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. Jesus answered, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you have no idea where you come from or where I am going, where I come from or where I am going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one, except when I call them sons of devils. But if I do judge, my decisions are true because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me in your own law, and written that the testimony of two witnesses is true. I am the one who testifies for myself. My other witness is the Father who sent me. Then they asked, where is your Father? You do not know me of my Father, Jesus replied. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. He spoke these words while teaching in the temple courts near the palace where the offerings were put, yet no one seized him because his hour had yet not come. Once more Jesus said to them, I'm going away, and I will look for, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. This made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that what he says? Where I go, you cannot come. But he continued, you are from below, I am from above. See, this is dickish stuff on his part. And I get it, like I understand it, but it's still dickish. You are from below and I am from above. You are of this world. I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins. If you do not believe that I am he, you will indeed die in your sins. See, you can't say, if you don't believe in me, this is like the kind of stuff that God in the Old Testament says. Like, this is spiritual immaturity, right? Who are you? They asked. Just what I have been telling you from the beginning, Jesus replied. I have much to say in judgment of you, but he who sent me is trustworthy, and I have heard from him, and I will tell the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father, so Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and that I have nothing to do of my own, but speak just what Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. Even as he spoke, many believed in him. Dispute over the children Jesus' opponents are. The Jews who have believed in him, Jesus said, if you hold to the teaching, you are really my disciples. They will know the truth, and the truth will set them free. That's another famous quote. The answer in him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say we shall be set free? Jesus replied, very truly, I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. That's true. Now a slave has no permanent place. Again, I would change the wording, but that's the true statement. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but the Son belongs to it forever. So the Son sets you free. You will be free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's descendant, yet you are looking for a way to kill me, because you have no room for my word. I am telling you that I have seen the Father's presence, and that you are doing what you have heard from your father. Abraham is our father, they answered. If you are Abraham's children, Jesus said, then you would do what Abraham did, as if you are looking for a way to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I have heard from God. Abraham did not do such things. You are doing the works of your own father. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only father we have is God himself. Jesus then said, if God were your father, you would love me. So again, God is everybody's father, right? We're all created by God. Again, spiritual immaturity. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I have come here for God. I have not come here from my own, God sent me. This is my language not clear to you. Why is my language not clear to you? Because you are unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was murdering from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for the truth is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks from his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Yet because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Can you prove me guilty of sin? If I'm telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? Whoever belongs to God hears what God says. The reasons you do not hear is that you do not belong to God. That doesn't work. They can't talk like that to people, right? I mean, you're just provoking them. Like you can't, as a spiritual master or a spiritual person, this is, again, spiritual immaturity on Jesus' part. But I get it. Like he's working with people that are, fucking sacrificing babies and idol worship and, fucking burnt offerings. And I mean, it's a very remedial place. Some of the stuff he's saying to them is true, but they're not understanding it. Some of it is, self-aggrandizing, but all of it's fucked. Like, this is a fucked religion. This is why the world's so fucked up. So, all right, let's move on to the next thing here. See, let me go back to this thing. So, people don't put things in proper context. Like, I just have a better stuff that I do here because of this knowledge of the difference between religion and spirituality. Where religion, God is external to you, and spirituality, God is internal, right? And so it seems like, because there's people who grow up with this in various countries, and their relationship to God is just better, even though they might be more primitive, even though they might be, I get into this in some of the Whispers of the Brighter World messages that I'm going to put in here at the end of the video. But unclean spirits, right? This thing that Jesus said. And so, the thing that I can say that, other people don't have access to this knowledge, let me switch over to a voiceover here, is that we all have moments of egoism that go against God's will. We all go against our own soul's path. We just all do it. It's something every person does, saints, mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. And these mistakes are not things that are bad or criminal or any of the things that people think of mistakes. Mistake is when you deviate from your soul's path and you go against God's will. And everybody does that, right? So Jesus said, let the person who has not sinned cast the first stone. It was a great, that's a great teaching from Jesus. But it's encapsulated in a lot of other bullshit, right? Because, he has the right idea then, but he gets into these people being devils and because they're going to kill him, all these things, and they're against him, and, he's provoking them, the way he's talking about things. I am that I am, and this stuff, I. The stuff that I read to you in the the biblical quotes. The issue here is that your sin, your egoism, your stuff that mistakes that you've made, deviating from the soul's path is all that you should concern yourself about. What other people do, you can talk about it as being, okay, I wouldn't do that, or, whatever it is, or, I mock it here and point it out just so people have some sense of what's going on with these, the success, the so-called, fame and fortune success stories that actually take people in the wrong direction, away from their soul, away from God. That's primarily why I cover these things here. And that people are interested, and I have to meet people where they're at. But you want grace from God. You want forgiveness from God. You want, to be understood. You want, to be heard for, the reason that you did things, and, the mistakes that you made. And you want, to be given some grace. Like, everyone wants grace when it comes to their own so-called sins, their own misdeeds. But you're not willing to give that to other people because they've done things much worse than you, at least according to your own estimation. That's how everybody is. And, it's understandable, but it's not right. It's not truth, right? It's not what's supposed to happen. And so, in all that, you have these wars between, religious wars and these people and those people. And, we have the right way and you have the wrong way. It's just really, it's completely fucked, and it's these religious wars and the battles, whether it's armies or missionaries or any of these ways that people have of forcing their bullshit religion on somebody else. The fact of the matter is that no matter what, the real problem is people don't want it. Like, people don't want it. And anybody who does spiritual work, Anybody who volunteers to do work from God, like in a real way, like not a crazy way, not a, you hear voices, but it's really your ego or some fractured personality bullshit thing, but you're actually connected to divinity, and God has a way of communicating with you and then communicating through you. And all of us who are, smart enough or stupid enough to sign up for that shit, right? Smart on one level and stupid on another. It's frustrating because people don't want to hear it. And you can put it in all kinds of different ways. You can threaten them, you can bribe them, you can do it with love, you can appeal to their intellect, you can be rational, you can be reasonable, you can make up grandiose stories, you can try to trick them and manipulate them, you can do all these things. And they just reject it no matter what you do. And that's the frustration that Jesus is saying here. And I've heard that frustration, and I feel that frustration personally, but not so much because, like, I just don't care. Like, I don't expect anything from people because I've seen what they've done. I saw what they've done with the Sajmark system, this bullshit heartfulness thing. I saw the corruption and fall of a spiritual master. I'm sure I've seen these things in past lives, and I just expect people to go low, right? When they have a choice to go high or go low. Sometimes they go high, but most times they go low. And usually when they go high, they can't sustain it, and then they eventually go low because that's what happens. Higher developed souls come in. People reach higher levels of spirituality. People start, being attracted to them, and they eventually fall of their egos get big and they fall from grace. This clearly happened to Jesus, and just some of these teachings. He started feeling himself. He started to say me, I, and make it about himself. These things, which is always the problem. You can never be, it's me. It's you gotta follow me. I'm the real son of God. Me, you can never do that shit, right? Even if it was the truth, you can't say those things, and you can't think those things, right? You just you go on serving, and you have to sort of differentiate between your ego and the divinity and the work that you're doing for God. And you're constantly bowing before God as an ego and submitting to God and, asking God to work for God. You're not necessarily begging, but in a very, supplicant mood where you're submitting to God in some way and you're opening yourself up to do God's work. And then the great thing about Sajmarg, which the third master of the Sajmarg system, Master Sharji, wrote to me, and I heard it over and over in various, talks, that you do the work and the results are God's. And I, stick to that, and it makes me, not go crazy with how frustrating it is that, people just don't listen, right? People don't want what's good for them. They're suffering, they're miserable, their fucking lives suck, they're lonely, they're, everything's falling apart, they're mentally ill, they're on medication, they're addicted, and they have all these things, and there's a simple solution to connect to the divinity within them and get congruent with their soul and connect to their soul's path, and they just don't want it, right? They're, even in that, how desperate they get. I mean, maybe to some extent, if people get so desperate. But, I talked about that movie. My dad told me the ending of the movie. It's called, I guess it's called The End, with Burt Reynolds, and he's dying of cancer, and he decides to swim out to, in the middle of the ocean, and he has this mental dialogue. It's not a great scene. I've eventually found the scene, but my dad described it to me. My dad, who was not my dad was mad at God because, he was a loser and he thought he blamed God, which is just par for the course. But he said, Burt Reynolds is out there and he's swimming, and he realizes he wants to live. So he says, God, I'll give you everything I own if you just save me. And then he gets closer to the shore. He said, God, I'm going to give you that 90% I promised you. I'm going to give you 90%. And they swim. He's going, God, I'm almost there, God. I'm going to give you the 50%. And then he gets up to the shore. God, you helped me make it. And I'm definitely giving you that 10% I promised you, right? And so, that's unfortunately how it is. That's the nature of human beings. And we all have it. And so, we should be less concerned about other people and their depravity, especially the people at the top of the pyramid, the elitist, the people that people call the elite, because they're the worst. They're the ones who are most ego-driven, ego-bound, and they have, they're living hell on earth. They're totally disconnected, and they are, they're fucked. And so there's no reason to expect from them what you can't do for yourself, because they're even much worse off. Okay, let's go, and there's a few other things I want to get to here. So this is from Jeff Epstein, and it's a check mark. Not Jeffrey, but Jeff. Someone needs to tear this stupid fucking wall down. Yeah, this is the humping the wall. These guys coming here to hump the wall, right? Thrusting their pelvises into the wall. It's some kind of weird thing to do with the whole thing. Those guys are going to town right there. Master Chargy went to Israel. I'm not sure why. He traveled all over the world. He went to this wall. He said there's no spiritual energy there at all. Which, of course, with all this humping. So there's that. Okay, so one of my viewers sent me this thing about Erika J. Kirk. And it's about her addressing her weird hug with JD Vance and playing a victim and making it all about everyone else is wrong and weird and she's great, which is, of course, how she would play it. And I had, things. So today's Friday, Black Friday. So on Thanksgiving, towards the end of the day, I had some things to say about this when I first looked at a little bit of the video. And so I wanted to do the voiceover while it was fresh. But then I had a whole bunch of other thoughts. And so I wanted to include everything that I said before, all the jokes, and then also, some of this other information, about spirituality, because, she's pretending to be a spiritual person, which she, clearly isn't, because, it's just fake. It's performative, right? I mean, she might have some other stuff that she's doing on her own that's spiritual. I don't think so. But the stuff that she's displaying here is not. And so I'm going to redo the whole thing. And I went back a little bit further by accident. And so it kind of starts here. And then it's going to get to the JD Vance thing. It's longer than I wanted us to watch, but I think it's kind of important.
Bed at night, and then sometimes I'll say, well, tell me what you think he did in heaven today. And I just try to make it exciting, because it is.
Okay, wait, go back here a second, a little bit more.
So that was, some signs. But another sign, too, is just my daughter, just saying little things, and like, okay, I see you.
Is she starting to get it?
Yes and no. We talk about heaven. I make it really exciting. I tell her, Daddy had so much fun today. Everyone who has written letters and sent gifts to my children, thank you.
Thank you. It's just so fake. I'm regretting going back further. But it's got, there's stuff here I want to talk about.
I tell her, my son, he's only 1.5 years, but I tell both of them, Daddy is telling all of his friends to send you gifts and letters, and Daddy is orchestrating from heaven to make sure that you always feel so loved.
Okay, so let's start off there. So I just did the voiceover at the beginning of this video. So I just did the voiceover to this video, which you guys did probably some hours if you've listened to this far into the video, maybe 2 hours ago for you or whatever it is. And I talked about that I've had personal experience where I 100% know that there's a soul. I've experienced with the soul in my own existence, and then my other stuff. You guys might remember that. And I talk about having a purpose and a goal. And so, she can't have an experience that her husband is communicating to all these people to send her kids gifts and things like this, right? Because that doesn't mean shit. Like the kids lost their father. I mean, if this was a legitimate story, in a legitimate marriage, and those kids, they have actually kids, and I don't know whether that's true or not, but it looks more and more like that isn't true at all, right? But her saying this is a lie, right? She doesn't know. And those gifts aren't going to make up for his being dead and all the things. Material, like some stuffed fucking animal, right? Which she can afford because she's gotten $2.5 million in GoFundMe money and $70 million of post-Charlie Kirk death money. in donations, right? And she's got a company, and she's a very wealthy woman, and she can buy whatever the kids want, whatever it is. And people don't have to send their hard-earned money, you know, dumb fucks who are, buying into her bullshit, right? We've seen when she did that interview with whatever is Sean Hannity or the other guy, Jesse Waters, and she brought him to this warehouse where all this letters and shit is coming in, and gifts for her kids. There's stuff aside for her kids, and people are spending their hard-earned money for somebody who's substantially more wealthy than herself. When there are single moms out there that can't give their kids a Thanksgiving Day dinner and are not going to be able to give their kids a Christmas, right? And so this is just so fucking gross. She is so fucking gross, right?
And the other day she was like, tell me about Daddy's Day in heaven. So we talked.
Yeah, she didn't say that. She's a 3-year-old kid. She didn't say that. That's like fucking... Have you ever seen a 3-year-old kid say, tell me about your day at work today, Daddy? Like these self-involved little fucking shitbag toddlers. These narcissistic little toddlers. They don't have the capacity to do that. Like this is just something. This is her being a human Hallmark card, and she's just making shit up. She says things all the time her daughter doesn't have the capacity to say. Right? There was one of these events that happened. One of these, kind of shooting events, and one of the moms came out and said that her son had written emotional and healing love on a chalkboard the day before the shooting happened. And, it's like a 5-year-old kid who wasn't really, maybe 6-year-old kid, I don't know. Really small, young kid. I think a kindergartner. And wrote out of nowhere, like he just channeled it and wrote it on a wall. And then it became a whole movement. It became a whole subplot to the story. Things that are just, the things you see in a really bad movie. Like if you were watching a movie and some like bullshit Christian movie that's, not actually about Christ or about God, but some like bullshit stuff that they believe. And some little kid came and said, Mommy, tell me about Daddy's day in heaven today. You'd be like, oh, this thing sucks, right? It's a weird little kid. It's not a real kid. It's not, I mean, it'd be hard to get a 3-year-old to say that when they're like given prompts, you know what I mean? If you, I was watching this documentary of the balloon boy, right? This kid got stuck in an air balloon, and he was given an interview, and he told the interviewer that he was hiding away in an attic, like he ratted out his parents, because kids, you don't know what kids are going to say. Kids say the damnedest thing. I think it was a show with Bill Cosby. It was some kind of show. When I grew up, I didn't watch it, but it was there. Because kids, you never know what a kid's going to say, even if you give the kids prompts and you give them a script. So they didn't say that. Look at the way she's looking, like this fake fucking Hallmark card bullshit.
About that at night, and then sometimes I'll say, well, tell me what you think he did in heaven today. And we just
this look that she does, that whole look, it's so fucking fake. It's so annoying, right? And it's just it's hard to get through these things.
Just try to make it exciting, because it is. Heaven's our home.
Okay, you don't know anything about heaven. That's why you said you're looking for an answer. Heaven's our home. Is it your home? It's some bullshit stuff you've learned in your religion. You don't have practical experience of it. You don't really know that much about it. It's described, not all that well in the book, and the book itself is full of shit, right? So, you can believe in heaven, sure, but have you had an experience of it? Like I said in the beginning, there's things that you have experience of, and there's stuff that you just believe, right? You're told you have a soul. When you grow up in various places around the world that have a religion, and your parents follow some religion, they believe in a soul, so you hear about that, but you have experience of a soul. You know it for yourself. Like it's in the books, you've heard people talk about it. You have experience of heaven. And she clearly has it, right? Like it's whatever you're imagining it to be, and most of it's bullshit because he's coming back. He might even be reborn. Charlie Kirk, who the fuck knows? He didn't make it out of this world. He didn't get what's called liberation, because clearly he didn't. Like he was, We'll get into that more because always talk about what a piece of shit he is, and there's plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, to talk about that.
And so I just want her to know that Daddy is having so much fun and building a place for her and our family in heaven.
Okay, with what? Does he have a fucking hammer and a construction wheel? What do you mean building a place for you? Like, why would you need a place for your soul? Do you think your soul needs a bed? You think your soul needs a roof? You think there's, in the etheric world, in heaven, it rains? You think it's cold? You don't have a body. You have a soul. So, like, what do you mean building a fucking place for you? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And, this idea that, these kids will probably grow up, if she does have kids, and they'll be like, fuck you, crazy lady. Like, they're not going to want, and who knows what these kids are going to be like, but if they're typical American kids, you don't have a close relationship with your kids, right? She doesn't have a loving relationship with her husband, at least the one that she's displaying here. So I don't think she'll have one with her kids, and I don't think her kids will. Families aren't close here, so in America. So this idea that they're all going to be in heaven together, so a lot of times your soul family is not your biological family. Like for many of you, you don't feel like your family's your soul family. Like people that you have to go to spend holidays with, and it's a burden, and you don't really like to talk to them, and they're not really important to your lives. And the older you get, the more distance there is. And you find real people that are like a part of your soul family, right? They're a part of your, they're like you. A lot of times you're born into a situation where people aren't really like you, right? And that, as you get older, you find people that are. And so, but it's stupid, this idea that they're building something. He's building something in heaven for you. Like, it's just, what the fuck are you talking about? Like this Hallmark card bullshit, like trying to make it something. It's not, right? His soul is wherever it is. And it doesn't need physical things, right? Doesn't need stuffed animals, doesn't need a home, doesn't need these things.
How do you, yeah.
Like, the dumb fucks, right? Why are you applauding that dumb, Yeah. Yeah. No, dab your eyes, fucking. The little fake crying.
I know that you haven't watched the video, and you shouldn't watch the video, and you
We'll
don't
never watch that video.
and you don't want the kids to watch the video. Yeah. But how are you going to handle it when they get older, Erika, and they start to learn about the haters? Right? Because there does have to come a time where that needs to be put in the proper perspective.
Or the haters, or the people that are calling bullshit on your lies? Are they haters, or are you a lying piece of shit and people are figuring that out? Like, which would, because I don't hate her. I mean, she is one of the most difficult people to listen to. Really, repulsive. Her acting, her fake stuff that she does. Specifically for me, it's hard, right? This fakeness that she does. I mean, this is one of the things I want to add today, so I'll do it here. We all have to fake things. Like I was in India, and I would walk by people, and I would try to smile, like, people I knew, and nod to them, and I don't want to talk to them. Most times I'm just like, oh shit, there comes a person I know. So I'm in India, there's people I know from various countries, and people who may or may not like me, and I don't know, what I feel about them, whatever. More than likely, I'm not interested in talking to them or whatever. And I have to nod at them, and, I was going through my stuff. My ex, and we were going through a divorce process, and I was going through what we call cleaning, right? And I just couldn't smile. And then one day we were taking pictures, and I fake smiled. Like I put on a smile, and I wasn't, it wasn't sincere or genuine. And I was like, holy shit, I did it. Like, and I had it for like a month, like I could do it. And I lost it again, right? Because I'm not good at that kind of stuff, right? Just faking it. Like, I'm not good at these things when you're in a superficial situation and you're supposed to behave in a certain way. and you're not supposed to be who you are. You're not allowed to be who you are as a person, right? You know, they did this to Michelle Obama, what's her name, the woman who ran again, Kamala Harris. Her laugh was so off-putting, they told her, stop laughing, it's creepy and no one likes it. And so, like you could see during her candidacy, she wasn't able to be who she is, right? One of the reasons people like Trump is he acts the way that he acts. Like he's not putting on, he lies and he deceives, but that's part of who he is. He's a grifter, but he's not somebody who's, faking it, right? Trying to fake to be these things. And Erika J. Kirk was able to be sincere and realistic in some of these earlier interviews before Charlie died. But since then, she's trying to perform like a grieving widow. We can all see it. I mean, it's there to be seen. Anybody can see it. Most people do, right? And so, there's people who just think that's life. Like they think they don't know how to act. They don't know who they are. And so they like people who act better, who act in a way and say the things like these Hallmark cards. There's lots of people who live superficial lives because they don't know, they're not any sense of like who they are as a person. They don't know what it is like to be authentic. They're uncomfortable with it, and so they're very controlled. They try to control everything by this performance. It's they don't let their hair down. They don't actually say what they're thinking. Everything in life is this, they're trying to perform. People do this on social media where they're using filters. And, there's a filter now where there's, like one of the people that I'm friends with, I have no idea how I'm friends with this foreign woman that, must have made friends with me a couple of years ago. We've never had any interaction. And, I don't go on Facebook that much. But there was a video of somebody, I didn't know it was her. And this dog, like it was a weird AI video that there was a dog, right? Like most of AI videos, you can tell right away it's AI, and they're starting to put it in movies, and you can just tell. There's just like there's just things in it, and you could see the dog was talking. So I clicked on the video, and it was a woman, and she was having a conversation with her dog. And I later figured out this was this person that friended me, and she, the AI image of her was making her look different and younger. And then it was making her dog talk to her, right? And she put up multiple videos of this thing. She got a new tool and was putting up shit on Facebook. Like her and her dog are having conversations because she's fucking batshit crazy, apparently. I didn't know. And then I saw these other videos. So one of my longtime viewers posted one. I could tell was an AI-generated image of the person. And so these people are starting to post AI videos to make themselves look younger, get rid of the wrinkles, to get rid of the, imperfections, just like filters that people use. For fucking what, right? They're just saying that you think you don't look good enough. You think that you need to be improved in some way. And so it's just a matter of making yourself feel worse about yourself because you're like, oh, my AI version of me is better. Fucking no, it's not. It's fake. Right? It's all fake, doing things to fake people, which is expected. Like people, get plastic surgery and they do things, makeup and all the stuff that they do because they're, want people that they don't want to, they're not happy with what they are, right? And which is a bad thing because you are the way God created you. You're the way your soul created you. And people don't know what their soul's like and what it is to be authentic. And this kind of stuff, the faking stuff, the people who are very controlled and do this performative shit. Like I just there's no place in my life for them, right? I can't deal with these people. But there are people who love it because they're the same way. And that's Erika Kirk and her followers, right? People who want this fake shit, this fake Christian shit, and this fake, Republican right-wing stuff that she's pretending to be. Because she doesn't know how to actually feel the feelings of grief, or her marriage is fake, because it's all performative.
Charlie was so tough. It was hard to get him rattled about these attacks.
He was totally rattled by Israel saying he was a bad person, and you were the one he said that to. He did an interview with her, not going to show it, but he did an interview in which he said, it wasn't like they were just criticizing his position, but they were saying he was a bad person for what he was doing with Israel, and he was messed up. And she said, I think she and Tucker Carlson were talking about it. So I found this clip here, And she directly confronts what she just said to Erika, Jake, Shekels, Kirk.
And you're right, he's young. You know, he was young and wasn't used to being attacked like that by people who supported him and people whose donations are actually really important to the ongoing existence of his organization. And it took a lot for him to say no to them. And it took a lot for him to be honest about the fact that his opinions had evolved. And let's face it, Charlie was like an unofficial spokesperson for the youth of America, in particular conservative youth. And I don't know if people have
So
checked.
she's saying he struggled with the criticism, right, from Israel. Like he was, and he couldn't stand up to it. And, they were donating money. That was part of it. But he wasn't used to being attacked this way, right? And he said this when he was being interviewed with her. Like he was upset by the fact that they were criticizing him as a person, right?
But they no longer support Israel. And everybody under 30 is against Israel. Charlie was 31. And so as a friend, he's saying to them, as same way I, as a friend, am saying, I am telling you, you've lost Dems, independents, and you're starting to lose Republicans. You need to wrap it up. You've had a 2-year long leash. I know you want your hostages back, but this cannot go on until you have every hostage back. It's just not going to, you're going to lose every friend you have. And that's what he was saying because that's what he was hearing from his constituency. And so what he did to them was brave and noble to the donors who were very, very pro-Israel. It was brave and it was noble. He did not deserve to be smeared over it. And look, I like you, have zero belief that this had anything to do with his death, but it's part of the larger narrative that you're making, that he was a truth teller, that he was a fearless truth teller.
Yeah, it wasn't. He was taking Shekels up into the point where he was going to lose his audience. So he's a piece of shit, but, go on.
And that there were a lot of pockets when he turned to them and said those truths that grew extremely uncomfortable. And whether it was some too online, disgusting, messed up 22-year-old in Utah, or, somebody who couldn't stand his messaging that was very frank around race or around Islam, whatever, take your pick. He's said the hard truths on all of these things. I think a lot of people have to have a really ugly conversation with themselves now in the wake of his.
Okay, so you get the idea. Like she was saying that there's some other stuff somewhere else. I'm not going to go find it. But talking about how, like she said, he was young. So she's going back here and talking about this. I'm going back a little bit farther. She's talking about how her and Charlie became anti-Semites for mild criticism of Israel.
Agree with that. But in response to those comments and then ultimately having Marjorie Taylor Greene on where we criticized AIPAC, I mean, who defends a lobbyist group? They treated me like I was Mehdi Hassan. Not everybody, but like the loudest Israel defenders. And to turn around and call Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite is such a disgusting smear. And you're right, he's young. He was young and wasn't used to being attacked like that by.
So she, she's making it clear maybe he was able to have thick skin when it was liberals, but wasn't really able to have thick skin when it was his donors. But even then, wasn't used to the kind of criticism in general. Like these guys are tougher. Like they talk about how Charlie was so kind and he was such a good person in the beginning, right? But let's get back to the other thing here. Okay, so here is the first one that I ever saw about this.
Lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, why are you, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But, like, some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been
almost
so
as if
unfair.
you,
they were coming after you after a turning point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions, not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And it's
So, I agree with Israel on this one because they gave you fucking $100 million. And, like, what do you think you were going to be able to do here, right? I mean, you're not in terms of they killed him or not, but, when we give somebody $100 million, you were fucking they bought you. They fucking bought, and it's not hundreds, like $200, $300 million. I mean, they made him into what he is, right? They gave him the funding to create whatever DPUSK has become. And everybody should be aware of this. In American business, there is a huge unfair advantage if you have capital going into it, right? So if you're starting from scratch, in this case, this is a business like so many of us have on social media. So if you come into this thing broke and then you just try to win an audience, you're trying to connect with people and bring in as many people as possible. If you have $300 million, you're going to do a lot better than someone just coming in broke, right? If you have funding, and not just the funding, you have connections. You have people that can go to YouTube and say, yeah, we really want you to promote this guy. You have people that can, tell the social media platforms to carry your shit, right? And all the other advantages of money, like having money behind you. Everybody knows it. And so Charlie had that. And so we don't know what he would have been without the Israeli support, but it wouldn't have been anything like this. He wouldn't have affected the election, and he wouldn't have done any of these things. And so, so Megyn Kelly's aware that he was not doing well with this, right? That, this thing, she wasn't be able to handle it. Look how upset he is, right? She's lying here, right? Like she's lying. Like she just said here, I'll go back maybe just a little bit so in case you've lost it. I don't want to fucking, it's hard to get through.
We start to learn about the haters, right? Because there are
Those
just
haters.
have to come a time where that needs to be put in the proper perspective. Charlie was so tough. It was hard to get him rattled about these attacks. But
Seemed pretty rattled about Israel. Do you see so I rattled to you? So she's lying here. And the other thing is, there is haters. There are people who hate you. They're full of hate and they want to dump it on somebody. And they hate you unjustly. Like they have created you as a straw man for their hate, right? They just want to dump hate on somebody. They just want to criticize people. They're not, or whatever, they're disagreeing with you, and they're just absolutely wrong. They're just fucked up people that are hating. And so there's haters, right? But then there's legitimate fucking arguments and criticisms about the bullshit that you're putting out, right? And, anything that they're getting here, there are going to be people that hate on her for the wrong reasons, right? There's true haters out there. And when I'm talking about a hater, I'm talking about somebody who's filled with hate or whatever negativity and just wants to dump it on somebody else, right? All hatred is self-hatred. The object of your hate is the object of your hate. I talk about this all the time. The hate is within you. And there are people who just want to go on the internet and argue with people and dump their shit on somebody else, right? You guys all know about that. There's lots of people that are like that. Yeah, so that's true. That exists. And when you go on the internet, those people are going to show up and they're going to try to dump their shit on you. It doesn't bother me because I know they're not talking about me. They're talking about themselves, right? True criticism, when somebody's criticizing something, like in her case that she's fake grieving, which we'll get into with the JD Vance, I'm far away from that shit. I'm nowhere close to where I started. I'm regretting going backwards a little bit, but I think it's important. But, like this thing where somebody says something real, like people who are offended by her fakeness, right? She's really fake and she's very performative and she's not grieving in a way that would say that she's legitimately, she immediately went into performance mode a day after Charlie Kirk died, right? And so these so-called haters, what they're talking about are people who are giving legitimate criticism. Some of them are TPUSK people, who are upset by the way that she's running the business and that she's not following through with some of the things he said. Some of the things he said with her, we just heard about Israel, right, attacking him. He was very upset about Israel attacking him. That was only a month before he died, and even more so. And he would have been talking to her about it, and she's not going by his dying wishes. All these things, right? Those aren't haters.
But, and I can speak to this, having my own children, 2 of whom are backstage. There comes a time where you have to sort of help your kids understand the terrible negative messages that are out there about someone they deeply love. Have you thought about that at all? Like how you're going to walk them into that?
I first and foremost want my children to have a childhood. So that's another reason why I don't put them on the internet. It's another reason why I don't.
Okay, so they're only 3. Okay, so when are you going to put them on the internet? Like, is she talking about the pictures? Putting pictures of them? Because they're only 3. They're not going to find out what people are saying about them, and they wouldn't even understand. And when people see that you with them, it's amazing. I don't know if there's pictures of her with her kids out there, but there has to be times that people are taking photos, like fans, with her and her kids. Like, I mean, I don't believe those kids are hers. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's just based on what I see. I don't think there was a real marriage here. I think Charlie was probably gay. I mean, there's some evidence that he is. Certainly a lot of people that work there were. At least, they seem like they were, right? Like they're, closeted maybe or something. But, DPUS gay, they're not just like, you guys can see that they're very effeminate over there. And so, all that stuff. But, like, the way she talks about it, it's not someone who really has kids would say things like that, right? Like, she doesn't know how a 3-year-old is.
Expose them to certain screen time. I've said it before, some of the shows, the only shows they would watch is Charlie.
Like the way she says that with her face, that fake thing, it's just so annoying. Like, she does these, like, I don't know if she's trying to be cute or funny or whatever. Like, she makes jokes that nobody laughs at. She was like, I mean, like Mercy laughs, right? She's not funny. She's not, one of these things. But, watching Charlie Kirk as a 3-year-old, like, what could he possibly, like, she said that she would bribe her kids, that Charlie was going to talk about, he was going to have one of her daughter's stuffed animals on his show, and he would hold it up. And she had to say and when he came home, she had to say which stuffed animal we held up. Like, he would ask her, he would quiz her, like this is his thing, his daughter. So he expected his daughter to sit through his whole bullshit YouTube videos. Like, I would never force my kids to listen to me. Like, it's fucking weird. Guess what? I'm going to say something in there. I'm going to quiz you later to make sure you guys are fucking listening to my YouTube videos, right? I mean, even as adults, like, I mean, my kids don't listen to me anyway. So, I was talking about that chicken today, so I'm not going to force that, right? Just whenever you use force, there's a counterforce. But it's not appropriate for these. You ever try to talk to a 3-year-old about politics, right? It's appropriate to talk to kids, in an adult kind of level. Like, you don't treat them with baby talk, goo goo gaga. You don't come down to some imaginary baby level, because they're going to be adults and you want to prepare them, but you don't put adult topics. Certainly things like politics and all these things that they're by the time the kid's old enough to understand them, they're going to change so drastically. It doesn't really matter, and politics is stupid, and all these things that Charlie Kirk was interested in. You can talk to them about God, that's great, but not the indoctrination bullshit, religious bullshit. You can tell them about your religion if you're a religious person, but, ultimately, there's something beyond that. But, most people don't know that, so that's whatever. But she doesn't know what a 3-year-old's capable of, right? Why would a 3-year-old, why would a 3-year-old need to listen to Charlie Kirk, even if it's her dad? They don't.
Bob Ross, because he has a very nap-inducing voice.
Like, it's not a funny joke. It's not funny. Like, fucking, and fuck you for, Bob Ross is a white dude with an afro that paints, right? He's got a very calming, AMSR kind of voice. But do you really need Bob Ross to put your kids to sleep? Right? Like, how does that work? You put the show on, and the 3-year-old, and she falls asleep. Like, it's like she goes to sleep listening to Bob Ross. I mean, that's like it's weird. Like, why would a kid wouldn't probably really like Bob Ross? I don't know many kids who watch Bob Ross, right? But if they do, it's like a kind of a weird thing.
And then, every now and then it would be some of Charlie's events. But I want them to be children first, and I want to teach them so much about God.
You got to know stuff about God. She's trying to be like a guru, like a saint. She's putting on a saintly act. She's trying to step into this thing like she's saintly, and Megyn Kelly's feeding into this. And, she might get some, there's going to be an audience for this. Like I said, people who just don't know how to be authentic themselves. And they like this fake shit. They watch fucking Hallmark movies. They watch fucking, these really bad Christian TV shows and movies that are, full of this fake shit, right? But it's a small group of people, right?
And Jesus. So that when they do get older and they do see the hate, they also understand how much good is still out there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. She's a walking Hallmark card. How much good is out there? They will understand how much good is out there.
And they also understand that they could be the antidote to the evil. And they can pray for those people.
Okay, so that's not their job, and you don't teach that. Who talks about that? Like, I thought my kids were going to be more evolved. They were going to go farther along the spiritual path than me, that they were going to do better in Sajmarg. They were being born into it. They had a head start that I didn't have. And that their souls chose to be born into a situation where they would get exposed to the Sajmark system. And it's one of the things, it's one of the things I can't explain. I mean, the teachings were there. Master Charji said that these souls are choosing to come into this circumstance because there's not many places where kids get to be born in a spiritual environment, where they're going to be able to, they get the freedom to do spirituality. The parents have enough of an IQ and enough of resources that they're not struggling. There's not very many good places to be born into where you have the, access to becoming a spiritual person. Like, there's not many families. So, he said that you should have lots of kids because of this, right? Because this is, most times spiritual people don't have kids. There are a lot of people who are religious or spiritual who are, who are celibate or whatever. It's really hard for me to describe going to a Sajmarg gathering. And partly because I'm just describing it out of memory. Like, every time I went to one, I'd go to the ashram in Georgia or went to India. I'd go walk through the gate and I would be like, oh my God, yeah, this is exactly what it is, right? The energy that's there, it's hard to replicate. Like, I can remember it, but I can't even describe it. And I can't, feel the way it feels to go to one of these things. It's like walking into heaven. And there were these young kids that were there before I was, married when I first got to, start doing the practice. And these young kids would put on a play, and they all seemed like they were spiritually, gifted kids. And these kids would go on to do good things, especially in America. Like, there was about 500 or so people, and there was about, 100, 200 kids. And all these kids seemed, like they were just, cut above. They're smarter, and a lot of them were, have done well, I think, in the material world. But most of them have not done Sajmarg. Like, almost none of them have stuck with it. I think there's a few that the parents quit, but the kids end up doing it, which is atypical for America, or not atypical, it's typical for America. A little bit different in India because there's family pressure, but, and I thought about it with my own kids. And I thought that they would just, embrace this. I hope they would, but they didn't. And, that's just the way it went. Like, it's just, it's not expected. But that's all you can hope for, that they exceed you spiritually. But they may or may not be into it. Like, your kids are totally different people than you. And in America, your kids almost always rebel against what you do. I've talked about this. So, but this stupid thing, I mean, I don't even think she has kids because she talks about them in a way that that, you know,
and not be afraid. I'd never want them to be afraid. But I want them to also see that that evil is because they or their parents or their loved ones is actually doing something to make a difference. Because if you're not getting attacked or slandered or whatever else out there, you're just looking a lot like the rest of the world. And I want them to know that that's okay. You know, I have been called so many names. I have been slandered and...
You know, like, what are the names? Is it the C word? Is it the B word? Is it the W word? Is it witch? I mean, what is it? Is it bad actress? Like, you know, in what way are you being slandered? Because your performance sucks. Like, if we're critiquing you as a grieving mom, a grieving widow, you're at zero. Like, it's just all performative. Like, there's no real grief that people see, that, you know, people who are awake see. Like, it's just not there. I mean, if it was there, I wouldn't be saying a word about this. If she was truly grieving Charlie Kirk, I would not at all say anything about her. Like, there would be, you know, I would feel, like, whatever it is, you feel bad for somebody who just lost their husband. I would feel bad. I would feel empathy for her. It's a horrible thing. If Charlie was legitimately killed, which we don't know, but one way we would know is that she was really fucking grieving. You know, people talked about how when Candace Owens talked about this, and Candace might have been performing too, I only saw a little bit of it, but Candace was much more believable. And how is that possible? When Candace was, you know, kicked to the curb by Charlie Kirk chose his Israeli donors over his friend Candace Owens, where, you know, he was married to this bitch, right? I don't want to slander her, but
none of that means anything to me. It's all just
none of it does. It does mean shit to her, right?
noise.
It's really been crazy.
No, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Watching people turn on you has been one of the most unexpected, strange, terrible things.
you know
since
what?
It's because she's fake, Megan. You don't see that she's fake. Like, it's fake. The fakeness. It's people don't believe it. They don't believe that you're sincerely grieving. Do you think that's because they're assholes? No. Like, you know, it's really hard to call out a woman who just lost her husband for being fake and grieving in a fake way. It's really hard to do that. For some people, not for me. Like, people come here because I've been doing it since the beginning. Because I don't give a shit. If you're faking, like, it's offensive that you're coming out and acting and performing and being fake when your husband just died. Like, what kind of fucking person are you? What kind of heartless person? You know, anybody who truly loved their spouse, the most important thing would be your spouse dying. It wouldn't be the business you have to take over. You know, if you were forced out to do the business, you know, like you felt like you were forced out, you know, from your grieving process, but she jumped into it. She's totally into it. She's totally into it, right?
Megan, and I know you get this because you have a thick skin and a soft heart.
You got thick skin and a soft heart. Like, she says that like fucking, you know, if you had a soft heart, you would truly grieve. You know, like, nothing else would matter, right? You lose like, people will leave comments about, you know, people they know or their own experience, where you're dealing with a death for years, right? Like, you never really get over some of these things. You know, it's just, wow, like, fucking, that actually happened. Like, you know, it's like you wake up when something bad happens. Like, let's say you lost a child or something, and you can't go to sleep. You finally, like, after days, you maybe go to sleep or whatever it is. And you wake up with a start going, like, you know, it's almost like you were sleeping. And you wake up, and for a moment, you forget the bad thing happened. And then you remember, like, fuck, you know, that fucking happened. Like, it's just, you know, you were dreaming, you were asleep, you were unconscious, and you wake up and you forgot that your child died or your spouse died. And then you were like, oh, you remember, and you're like, fuck, you know, it's just like you suffer again. You know, just, it's a hard thing. Like, grieving is, like, you know, there's the 5 stages of grief, right? There's the 5 stages for a reason. You know, it takes a while for acceptance. Like, you know, your denial and bargaining and these other things. You have to go through that shit. She was shooting Instagram videos of her husband's corpse being photographed with JD Vance's wife, Usha, and the rest of that shit that was so performative. And then she gave a speech on day 2 or 3, day 2.5, and it was so shitty, it's so fake. Like, so that's why you're getting criticized, that people are reacting to your performing when you should be grieving, right?
The thing is that the more that people, and it gets outlandish, more and more crazy as time goes on, because there's just a void that apparently needs to be filled.
You think that's what it is? You think it has nothing to do with the fact that you're performative? Like, you don't think it's anything to do with how you are being, right? It's just that people want to criticize, and there's all this hate out there, and you just have to be the target. Is that what you think, right?
I'm okay with the world not understanding me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with I don't want to look like the world. We're as Christians, we're called to be in the world, not of it. And if they could
Okay, so this is where I started off yesterday. So what she's talking about here is detachment, right? So as a spiritual person, like the Sajmark system just has better stuff, better philosophy, better whatever. And in the Sajmark system, in India they have these guys called sannyasis. And they're usually Brahmins, and they put paint on their face. And they walk around, and they're supposed to be holy people. And they beg for money. You have to give. People who have to give them money, and they don't have a job. They don't have families, and they're in Sajmarg. It's like kind of considered something to be rejected, right? Because the Sajmarg teaching is that you have 2 wings of a bird: a material wing and a spiritual wing, and that many people who are spiritual, like most people, just focus on the material wing, right? We all see that. But the spiritual people that run away from life and they go to a monastery, they go to an ashram, they go to these places where they take a vow of celibacy, and they just live in these places. You have a body and you have a physical life, and you need to contribute to society. And oftentimes they leech off society. That's why the masters of the system all had jobs. And everybody has a job. No one gets paid in Sajmarg, right? But in that, Babaji, the second master, talked about having non-attachment attachment. Like, you had attachments, a wife, family, these things, but you were supposed to be somewhat distant. Like, there's this, you're there and you're not neglecting them. You're still being loving and doing these things, but you're always thinking about God. You're like, a little bit distant. It's a beautiful way of doing it, because you don't want to get attached to things on planet Earth, get sucked into the bullshit drama, which I've talked about so much and everyone can see, right? Now, she's saying this, she says the words, like, she's not of this world, but she clearly is. She wears this gaudy fucking jewelry. And you're going to see as we go through this, remember she said this, right? We'll go back, she can say it again here. 1920. There we go.
I'm okay with the world not understanding me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with I don't want to look like the world. We're as Christians, we're called to be in the world, not of it. And if they could understand me, then I'm not doing something right.
Okay, so she said that they're applauding, but she's totally in the world. She's got fucking $70 million of money. I've already said that. $70 million from donors since Charlie's death. She's got a big fucking house. She's got all this gaudy jewelry. She has all this fucking shit that she's wearing, all this like fucking weird clothing. And she likes to be in front of people. She's like a materialistic person, right? And we're going to see this throughout this process, right?
Forgive me. Did you see people didn't understand the hug that you and JD had?
Look at the fake laugh. People didn't understand it. We're too stupid to understand what we saw. Like, we're the people that are calling bullshit on her hug. We're fucked up. We're the fucked up ones because of a weird ass hug. Everybody was like, that fucking hug was weird. I don't understand it. I'm too much of a dumb fuck to understand the hug. Well, you see that people didn't understand the hug, like fucking dumb fuck, motherfucker. I'm not a dumb fuck. There was a hug and I just didn't get it. I didn't get the fucking weird thing where you put her hand on the back of his fucking head and that weird shit. I'm just fucking too stupid. Oh, fucking dumbass. I don't understand. It's too stupid. These dumbasses. Everyone, all your TPUS gay audience who didn't fucking understand this hug, right? And she's laughing. Look at these dumb fucks out there. They didn't understand that Freemasonic fucking hug and that beta sex kitten hug that we did. They didn't understand it.
They went to the weirdest places, Erika.
Oh my gosh. You guys.
Wait, okay, so you're laughing about this, so why are you dabbing your eyes? Like, what? Why would you dab? Why did that make you cry? Why do you have to dab? You see, I said this in the maybe last video. She had real tears, and it seemed like it came after she dabbed her eyes, and people are speculating that she has something on her cloth that makes her eyes tear up. But, like, it's not an appropriate time to dab your eyes. Like, you're shitting on all these people that don't understand your incredible hug with JD Vance.
Please. So for those
Look, what?
of you who know me, I hug is
Yes,
like.
you're an intense hugger. It's
Whoever
awesome.
is like.
It's an awesome, you're a tense hugger. No, it's weird. Like, fucking, Again, this is supposed to be a spiritual person who's not of this world. In it, but not of it, right? My true home is heaven, but you're just such a hugger. Like, she's trying to pretend that she's this loving, caring, spiritual saint-like woman who's just giving these divine hugs to people. But that's not what the rest of us see, right? Like, again, this...
Eating on a hug needs a hug themselves. I will give you a free hug anytime you want a hug.
So wait, go back to what you said there. She was saying that if you shit on my hugs...
I hug is
Yes,
like.
you're an intense hugger. It's
Whoever
awesome.
is like hating on a hug needs a hug themselves. I will give you a.
Okay, so I'll give you a hug. We're not hating on a hug. It's this right here, right? It's this thing right here.
Free hug anytime you want a hug. My love language is touch, if you will. But seriously,
Well, then why would that be of this world? That touch is of this world, right? If your love language is expressed through touch, that's sort of like a beta sex kid. You see her that she's very physical. In the one episode of that shitty reality TV show she was on, where these really depraved people in the Hamptons, one of them who is a gay dude who's struggling with his sexuality, and somebody sets him up with her. And she flirts with him, and even though she talks about how he's a great spiritual light person, and she's very physical on the set of these. She was in a music video, and they did a behind the scenes making the music video, and she's all over this guy named Tyler, who's her co-star, and she's hugging him, touching him, putting very physical, and well, let me just show you that here. So there's a country music band called Emerson Drive, and they made a song, She's My Kind of Crazy. And they decided to cast young Erika Vance, soon to be Erika J. Kirk. So this is her, maybe, 10 years ago. And this is Tyler, her co-star, who's the guy that she's dating. And there's a lot of physical touch and flirting in the video itself. But this is behind the scenes, right? She's wearing her big gaudy jewelry here.
So I can only kick my feet and scream. High five. No. Okay, high five. I don't want to.
And she's just like, okay. Like, they just met. Like, they don't even know each other. And she went in she initiated a hug, right? And people have, this idea she's some beta sex kitten that maybe, whatever it is. She's going to get into her weird childhood and her famous basketball coach when she was a kindergartner. One of the reasons I'm remaking it is because of that, right? But, she's very physically touching, right? She's a hug giver, and she's very flirtatious, right? And let's go back to the other video here. So here's the hug. Remember, she's wearing these hot leather pants, which seems a weird outfit. A weird choice for somebody who's still so much grieving, so devastated over Charlie, right? But But she comes in, and this thing right here, which she puts her hand on her head, which she'll explain in a moment, which is a weird explanation. But when you are in a relationship with somebody, and there's intimacy, and there's just like, especially these Christian women, there's a reason why you see religious people, not just Muslims, who wear, and not that I'm saying I agree with this, but it's, something that's there. You wear clothing that, especially for women, that is to hide your, your figure. You're not, once you're married, and even before that, in some of these cultures, these Christian, you dress conservatively. Like she says it herself, dress conservatively. Like she says this when she's with Charlie Kirk talking to young women about getting married. And one of the things is, as a spouse, you don't want to be touching people in a way that would upset your spouse, right? In a flirtatious way, in a sexual way. And, this is done in a very public way, too. This is a married man, and it's very intimate. It crosses a line, which most people can see. And you can say, well, I'm just a hugger, and I like to give hugs, and I love to touch people. But as a Christian woman, there's reasons why, these Christian women, some of these Christian women wear head covering, like the Amish, the Mennonites, and some of these, the way they dress in a certain way. It's not as to attract the opposite sex, right? You're married off, and you don't, these things are only for your husband, right? In the Indian culture, the women wear their hair up or in a braid, and they only let it down for their husband. Like there's things like that in these various cultures. And so I'm not saying I agree with it or not, but I think it's mostly a positive thing, right? That you don't want to be touching the opposite sex or other people because you're intimate with, your husband and your wife, and you don't want to create some sense of insecurity or some sense that you're out there still looking for a replacement, any kind of thing. You've made your choice and you're happy with your choice, and that's, it's the intimacy is between you and your spouse. And Christians are really into that, right? Especially these Christian women. Like she knows the teachings, but she's very fucking touchy-feely in a way that makes people uncomfortable, right? Like that guy asked for a high five and she goes in for a hug. That kid Tyler, she doesn't even know that guy. She's not met him that day on the set, right? So this is Dianne Feinstein, remember her? The now dead Dianne Feinstein. This is Al Gore, and he has just won the Democratic nomination. And he goes up to his wife's Tipper, and she wasn't aware of this, and he gives her a little kiss, right? Which she was expecting. But then he goes in for a smooch, and he's making out with her, right? You can see her reaction here because she wasn't ready for that. Like he comes in for a kiss here. It goes on for a while. Comes in for a kiss here. Boom. And boom, that's the kiss that she was expecting. And then boom, he's like, all right, let's just go for the, knowing that the cameras are all there, right? There's all these cameras, everyone's watching this. And, I was not that politically aware when this happened. I was mostly leaning Democrat, like I voted for Gore. But I'm like, this is weird as fuck. And from this, I noticed how, because I didn't watch much politics, but like when I watched it, I saw how fake everything was. This is political theater. He decided to show that he was being criticized for being stiff. And so he goes and makes out with his wife to show that he's, hey, we actually do it. Like, I don't know if he's on the Epstein list or not, but, he's going for it, right? So he goes for it. And, and the only reason he did is because in front of the cameras, they ended up getting divorced at some point. And so I think they got divorced, but whatever. But this is all fake and performative. So let's get back into this thing with Erika Kirk.
That hug. So I will give you a play-by-play. Walking. They just played the emotional video. I'm walking over. He's walking over. I'm starting to cry. He says.
Okay, so they played a video where Charlie Kirk was pumping up Al Gore. Like a bunch of clips where he was talking about how great Al Gore was, right? They're going to get into how Al Gore was Charlie's choice for vice president. He's the one who pushed Al Gore on Trump, right? She's already going to endorse Al Gore. I mean, not Al Gore. Jesus Christ. JD Vance. I got whatever I just obviously what happened there. And so all those things. But she wasn't really crying. Like the video was there, and she saw the video. She helped put it together. There's no surprises here. And she's going to say this.
He's so proud of you. And I say, God bless you. And I touch the back of his head. Anyone who I've hugged that I have touched the back of your head when I hug you, I always say, God bless you.
Okay, so there's two things here. Three things. So going back to the Al Gore thing with, Tipper Gore, like they're in public here and they can have a private moment backstage. He can say to her without any cameras on, Charlie's so proud of you, which how the fuck does he know that that's the case? And, in reality, Turning Point has tanked. It's dead in the water. So her handling a Turning Point and, where Charlie was at the end of his life, where he was breaking free from Israel and he wanted an audit because he's worried about where all the money was going. She isn't doing any of those things because they had to get her. They had to get her. She shouldn't carry on what Charlie was doing because she'd be dead too, right? They had to get her ahead of time. They had to make sure that she was on board. I've said this before. They couldn't have some grieving widow out there calling for investigation. If she came out and said what Candace Owens is saying, there'd be real investigations. They can't have that. They have to have someone. She has to be on board. So she was more likely his handler, not his real wife. They had a fake marriage, and that's a more accurate description of what we're seeing here, right? Than what they're trying to say. The official story is just always bullshit. In this case, more so. But they didn't have to have that public moment like Al Gore did with his wife. He wanted to show off that he's passionate because he's, it's all fake. He's using his wife as a prop, just like she's using Charlie as a prop. And so her and Al Gore come together, and he says, she's so proud of you. And she puts her hand on the back of his head and says, God bless you, because that's her signature move. Now, I wouldn't be comfortable with that kind of a hug from somebody I barely know. And, first of all, when someone says, God bless you, you can say it when someone sneezes, like whatever. I say Gesundheit, because I don't feel comfortable. The reason I say, and have a blessed day, is that I don't feel comfortable saying God bless you, because I'm not telling God who to bless or who not to bless, right? I mean, God's blessed all of us with divinity within us. It's us who are not accepting the blessing. But, I'm not going to say God bless you like I'm telling God, hey, God bless this motherfucker over here, right? Because, that's up to God. Like your relationship is between you and God. I say have a blessed day, that you remember that you're, with this idea and be grateful. Be grateful and realize you have a blessed day and you're a blessed person. You have this opportunity, this spiritual opportunity that I talked about in the beginning of the video. I mean, I had to think about it, but that's what I felt comfortable saying. But her saying it is like she's blessing you. That people are looking for your blessings. And you can bless somebody, but it's not the same as God blessing them, right? Like she's some kind of spiritual saint and she's touching you on the back of the head and say, God bless you. Bless your heart. It's a bullshit thing, right? And it's totally performative. Like that's why people are reacting to this. And it looked really weird, right? Or black leather pants and this thing. It looked really intimate. And, here, let's let her finish up here.
That's just me. If you want to take that out of context, go right ahead. Again, that to me shows that you need a hug more than anyone else.
Why does that mean that we need a hug? You think it's because we don't feel loved? That we're somehow hug deprived, right? Like I can go get a hug right now from my wife. We hug all the time, right? So, next time we see each other, we hug. My wife, we have this thing we call it, she's read this thing about it releases oxytocin. That's not the reason we do it, but we call it tocin, right? But, and that's, whatever it is, right? But we're not hug deprived. Like, you're doing something that you're now explaining that this is just what you do. You put your hand on the back of people's head. I've seen her do it to a woman as well. And then you say, God bless you. this weird shit that you do. But you're very touchy-feely, and you do these things, and you explain that this is your love language, and you like to hug, and you like to touch people. But how is that anything to do with the part where you said you're in this world but not of it, right? So in the world but not of it. But you're like really physical, and you really care what people think, right? Charlie just died 2 months ago. The rest of us have moved on. But if he was really the love of her life, you think she would give a shit if people cared about how she hugged JD Vance? And some of these other things I'll talk about. Like, you're totally over your grieving process because you're going into a lengthy explanation. She says she doesn't read the internet. She doesn't see what's being said about her. But she says that everybody who doesn't understand her weird hugs, you're fucked in the head and you need hugs, right? Which is classic Turning Point US gay, right? Because they keep on telling us, not us, their fans, I'm not their fans, but they keep on telling their supporters, you guys are fucked in the head and you guys don't get it and you guys are crazy conspiracy theorists. And that's why they're losing their audience, right? Like, people had a problem with your hug and you were talking down to them like they're the weird ones. You do something abnormal. How many people have you seen that touch people on the back of your head? She reminds me of my ex who was sexually abused and, was a perpetual victim. And my ex used to stand too close to you when she talked. Like, she would stand within inches and just, you can't see a person. It's really off-putting. And if you stepped away from her, she'd say, you're my very own husband or you're my very own son. She did with my kids. It was weird. We were all, it was weird. We were being weird because she'd come right up to you like some creepy thing you'd see on a sketch where a person, those close talkers they talked about on Saturday Night Live, where someone would come in and be inches away from your face, and you'd be like, you take a step back and then they come back into your personal space, right? It's like she's one of these people. It's weird. And then instead of saying, hey, I understand I do something different and it was uncomfortable for people and, but they keep on telling everybody that they're wrong. No, you guys don't accept the official story that's unbelievable. It's just completely bullshit. You guys are fucked in the head. You guys are the ones fucked in the head, not us. And that's why they have no audience, right? The two guys I talk about, two beta males sharing one testicle, those two gay dudes. And you have Blake and Andrew that, go up there and no one likes them. And their video, I went to their channel yesterday when I did this. I was talking about this yesterday, but I'm redoing it today. And they only had some videos with 2,000 views. I'm getting twice as many views on my videos than they're getting on some of theirs, right? Because they've completely lost their audience, and the people that are watching keep on telling them either they miss Charlie or you guys suck and get out of here, you suck, depending on the video. And because they keep on arrogantly telling everyone else they're wrong. And that's okay if you were right, but you have done a bad job of grieving. You are getting into things that you shouldn't care about. When somebody dies, then the things that are important stand out. And, you being criticized for your weird hug with JD Vance shouldn't be something that you even care about. You say, I'm so sad about my husband, it doesn't even matter. But she's not, because she's not really fucking grieving, right?
So if anyone...
They were acting like you touched the back of his ass.
I feel like I wouldn't get as much hate if I did that versus...
What? Like, you poor victim. It was weird. Just admit it was weird. People don't understand it. Like, you do weird shit. You're a weird person. And, fucking, you've lost your audience. Like, this isn't coming from just liberals or other people. This is coming from people who are Turning Point USA to Turning Point US gay, Republican, Christian people that think you're weird. They don't buy your fake grieving act. And this is the majority of people think you suck, right? Like, you have some fans, but the majority of Charlie's fans and I don't even know how contrived. I think a lot of the stuff with Charlie was just bought views, and I don't think he was as popular and as influential as they tried to pretend he was. And I was going to stop here, but it gets into some other weird shit. They address something else here. I forget what it is, but we'll go to that point. They get into extensions. We'll get to the extensions.
But no, seriously, so now when I go and hug people, I'll bring them back in and be like, I obviously didn't give you the right hug. Like, come let me touch the back
where
of
do
your
the hands
head.
go?
I don't know what to do with
Can't
my
touch the
hands.
head. What can I touch?
I know. I'll just,
Oh my God, you're such a victim. Oh, poor you. Your hugging is being scrutinized.
Not me.
Yeah,
I'm always
just
like, if you touch the back of my head, I'm like, oh, she's feeling the extensions. Oh. Damn.
That's another thing. People think my hair is fake. It is very real.
My
Okay, so
hairstylist told me your hair is real. She was like, oh no, that's all real.
it's all real. It's all her. And so many of you have said she was wearing extensions, and my wife said it, and I can't tell. I don't know. Like I know extensions exist. I'm not. That's about all. But again, why do you give a shit about this when you're in this there's this perpetual grieving widow, right? The cries of this grieving widow will be heard around the world, and that you're going in there, dabbing your eyes, and make yourself cry, and talk my Charlie. Let's talk about my Charlie, all that shit. And you give a shit that people are talking about your hair extensions, like this thing, and and she brought this up because she knows she brought this up because she was going to say my hairstylist says your hair's real. So they wanted to get this. This was like kind of a planned thing. Either Erika's team wanted to address this, but this is what you guys give a shit about. Like Charlie's only 2 months dead, and you guys are getting into fucking fake hugs and fake hair. Right? Like this is what you care about. You're in the world but not of it. Like, well, this is like superficial bullshit. She's very superficial and controlled, and like she's very controlling, right? And very performative, and this superficial thing that she's done. And when people call her on it, she's like gonna fall apart. Like she's, if she was getting a real hard interview and someone was calling her on her bullshit, right, she would fall apart because she's just, like she thinks people are buying into it and they're not. Like she can't understand what their reaction is because she doesn't know how to be authentic.
This is real. I've had some women. Real? They like come and touch the back of my head. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, because it's weird when people touch the back of your head. Because it's weird when people just come up and people walk up to you and touch the back of your head and you don't really know them that well. Isn't that fucking weird? And who does that? Who's going up and touching the back of her head? Who's going up there and touching her head like there's, like I'm just checking for extensions. Is anybody really doing that? Like you're just another bullshit made up thing that you say, right?
They're feeling for the weave.
Out, yeah.
They're patting the weave.
I know.
What?
Anyways,
How is that real? Have you just been growing it out your whole life? We want to know.
Okay, so there's this bullshit kind of flirtatious, cute look that she does. Fake cute look. She's going to slam Michelle Obama. We'll go to that point, Megyn Kelly, and she's not aware of that.
My mother. Okay, so I loved sports growing up. I started playing basketball when I was 5. My first coach, he was
Charles Barkley?
Charles Barkley.
No way. I just guessed it. I watched this before. Can you guys hear that? If you can hear that, that's my guinea fowl. That's a sound that there's a predator around. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Maybe you can. She's saying she was 5 and she was Charles Barkley's coach.
Involved people, which is amazing to have as your 5-year-old YMCA coach. You could just see.
Look at that. Look at this fake. So Charles Barkley is a clown, right? And they got him in a dress a bunch of times because they always do that shit. He was in Arizona, but she's going to later say that she was. Well, let's go here.
You with your little Charles Barkley doll.
No, it was great. He's an awesome man. His daughter was a dear friend.
Was a dear friend. Then she realized I was a racist, didn't it? So Charles Barkley is, kind of an ass clown. But like first of all, this is what I wanted to say differently than what I was saying yesterday. This is why I redid this section of the video. Charles Barkley wasn't her coach. Like when you were 5-year-old, you remember any of these things? You purge most of your memories from that time of your life. She probably has no real memory of Charles Barkley being her coach. She has the memory of her parents telling her about it, right? Like when you're 5-year-old kids, does she remember practice with Charles Barkley? Kids when they play basketball, they can't dribble when you're 5 years old. These kids who are 5, 6, 7 years old. You can't dribble, even with a small basketball. and you can barely reach the hoop. There's no coaching. I mean, it's just, if you've seen little kid basketball, you don't really start making baskets. The majority of kids, like some kids, if their parents are like, you're going to be in the NBA, and they start you off young. That's why you have these little play Nerf hoops that kids play on. But most kids don't understand the rules. There's no real coaching. It's just kids running around, all going. There's no positions. There's just the ball and kids grabbing it. And Charles Barkley wasn't coaching his daughter. Like he was just showing up, whatever. Like he wasn't her coach. But she's always fucking name dropping. Again, her husband's only dead. She's got this big ass smile. She's been smiling more than crying, fake crying. She loves to smile. She's a smiley person. She smiles a lot, in all the videos before Charlie Kirk's death, when she was Erika Franze, all the way, when she was on the reality TV show, all the things that I've seen, she's smiling all the time. She likes to smile. That's who she is authentically. She's not somebody who deals well with sadness or grief. And I think she just wants to be positive and not talk about, her fake positive, but not talk about, these other things. But she's always name dropping, right? So she, Charles Barkley isn't really coaching. But one of the things I was saying about Charles Barkley, the guy, and probably not that long ago, long after he coached her at kindergarten, he was married and he was going, he got pulled over for drunk driving. And the cops are questioning him. And, now he's already going to get a DWI. He's going to be arrested. He's pretty drunk. And he says to them, yeah, I'm just going to this prostitute over there. She gave me the world's best, ding-dong sucking. He says that to the cops. So not only is he getting a DWI, but he also gets busted for, soliciting prostitution. And then it all goes as public record in the paper, right? He's kind of a depraved person, big into gambling. But she just wants to drop his name because,
And so I loved sports. And my mom, I was swimming all the time. I was always super active. And since my mom worked, I was always at the Boys and Girls Club. Always. And I was the last kid to get picked up from the Boys and Girls Club every single day. And the poor counselor, or whatever you want to call him, that had to stand with me waiting for my mom to pick me up every day. I loved sports.
So this is about your hair? Right now, she's going to make this about her hair. It's going to come back around, but she just took a big giant shit on her mom neglecting her, right?
Loved basketball so much. It was such a good escape for me as a child.
It's where you're escaping from. You're escaping from some MK Ultra mind control bullshit. What are you escaping from as a child that lived in a neighborhood where Charles Barkley was your coach? You were rich, people in Arizona. Your mom and dad are both working. You're a successful person. So what are you escaping from?
And I remember my hair from swimming was so ratted because I have very coarse hair, and my mom hated combing my hair. And so her solution was a bowl cut.
Oh, boy.
Straight.
We've seen that picture of her with the bowl cut. People say she looks like a dude. But, again, taking a big shit on her mom.
Across. Traumatizing. To this point, my hairdresser knows when we get a trim, it is literally like a
Your hairdresser's getting some trim?
fraction of my hair. I will never have hair shorter than my shoulders. Charlie loved my hair, though.
Charlie. Let's go back to Charlie because I'm just showing you that I'm totally over the grieving process because I'm telling you all these fucking stories, and that all this stuff that I'm really upset that people think that I have extensions and I don't. So let's bring this back to Charlie because every once in a while I got this they have a shock, I get a little electric shock reminding me to talk about Charlie and not myself because. People don't give a shit about me and they don't really like me, but I got Charlie, fucking Charlie. Chuck, as he's called. Not Charles Barkley, my first love, but Chuck, Charlie Kirk.
He loved
Chucky Shekels Kirk.
how long it was.
So what you're saying is you have long, thick, coarse hair that
Yes.
takes you a while to grow out and take care of, and you're not black or named Michelle Obama, which is fascinating that can happen.
With
to
all the conspiracy theories out
others.
there, I'm not going to touch that one either. Like,
Yeah, no.
She doesn't know that this is not about her. But she's shitting on conspiracy theorists. There's so many conspiracy theories out there about me. Yeah, maybe if you grieved properly, this wouldn't have happened, right?
But
Hopefully you haven't been paying too much attention to the news cycle, but they know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
No,
Yeah.
but
She has been paying attention when she's about her hugs with JD Vance or her having extensions. And so, does this look like a person who's grieving? Does this look like a grieving widow? Like she's still wearing her black fucking whore outfit here with the lace, whatever that is, whatever you call that. I call it lace, but it might be something else. But you know what it is. It's see-through, and it looks like lingerie, and it's also grieving wear and her fake act. And she cares about a lot of things that are material in nature that shows that she's really into the world. She's a big name dropper, and she's, really fucking annoying and fake and all these things, superficial and all of it. And so, like a complete fraud. And that's the problem. She's a fraud. She's fraudulent Erika Kirk. She's not, she's not sincere or authentic, and she's, perpetrating a crime on her audience, a scam, a grift, and she's made a lot of money, a lot of martyr money, $2.5 million in GoFundMe just directly to her family, and then another $70 million of new donations for reversing Charlie Kirk's last dying wishes, which was an audit on TPUSK and to cut ties with Israel. So thankfully I got through this fucking thing again, but I think I did a better job because there's things I wanted to add. And I think I'm going to read some comments and finish this video up with some comments. But Jesus Christ, this was hard to watch again. She's so difficult to watch because it's so fake and she's so annoying. It's a superficial thing that really particularly bothers me when someone has to feel like they're putting on an act and that they're really self-conscious and they're really not themselves and they don't know how to be themselves. Like, it's just, they've been faking things so long. You ever see that guy? He's a comedian, and he talks about like his time at IKEA, right? This guy is a comedian. He's like, I fake laugh so much I don't even know what my real laugh sounds like anymore, right? And that's Erika Kirk. Like she's faked it so long she doesn't even know what she is as a real person. And she obviously had some trauma when she was a kid because she needed sports to escape it. And she's got some issues with her mom, who doesn't seem to appear anywhere or be a part of her life. But, she's somehow this wonderful Christian woman who forgives everybody. She's forgiven the guy who she thinks, that there's the patsy. I forgive him, but not her mom. Anyways, let's move on to the other thing here. Okay, so I just finished the Erika J. Kirk thing. And I haven't read the comments yet, but I'm sure there'll be something I'll talk about here with that in a moment. But I just want to add something. Her saying that she had a bowl haircut when she was a kid. And then years later, she's so traumatized by that. I mean, she talked about having this escape from her life. She needed an escape. So, she's shitting on her parents and maybe she talks about this more significantly in other places, that she had shitty parents, right? Which would be a weird thing for her to say because, the family first and all these things and, the rest of it. But her saying that she can only get the slightest little trim on her hair because even though it's so long, she's got this huge fucking hole inside of her because of having that bowl haircut, right? Which is kind of fucked up. Like everything she's saying there, like there's this veneer, this fake persona she's creating that's not landing with people. And now these other things are starting to come out. Some real version of herself. And, it doesn't jive with this whole, trying to be this, bless you, my child kind of thing, right? Where she's, trying to be a saint just because her husband was murdered and he sometimes talked about God, but mostly was taking shekels, right? And he ran a political organization that's, that had really very little to do, nothing really to do with God. So the opposite. It's a devil worship. This is a demon president and a demon administration in there. doing demonic shit. Okay, so let's get into the comments here. Okay, so I got kind of a migraine headache. I can't go through all the comments. There's just a few here I'll read quickly. And then I had a Whispers of the Brighter World thing here. I enjoy your content, but the amount of ads and the frequency is head-wrecking. It makes it impossible to sit through 2 hours with the constant ads. It's a turnoff. And then later on, I think this person, you have a lot of commercials through your videos, and it's just too many. If you don't super need this for your revenue, please consider keeping them hourly interviews, not more. It truly ruins it because it becomes unwatchable. Yeah, like there's either, like I don't need, whatever I looked into, I don't have any control over the ads, right? So, and, you know, if I don't have ads on there, which of course I need for revenue, but let's say I made the video adless, YouTube can still put ads on it. So this is if you want to complain, go to YouTube. This person, dude, 2 hours long for that title, can't bother to listen. Where's the summarize button? I don't know, you low attention span having motherfucker. I mean, I don't care if you listen or not, but, you know, and so this was one more thing here. I know you are only the one-man show. A bunch of people said, yo, you're not a shill or it's one-man show or whatever, because I must have read a comment about that. Of course I'm a one-man show. You know, like it's silly. You know, oh, I wanted to say something to that. What I wanted to say was, I don't work well with other people, as you might guess. And so, yeah. Anyways, I did a voiceover. I read some Whispers of the Brighter World messages, and I'm going to put that here. And then I'll, you know, whatever. I'll continue on with my next video tomorrow. So here it is. Okay, so it's Wednesday, November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving's. You know, I have all these Whispers messages to read. There's a bunch of good ones, so I want to get through them. I might put these on the end of some video instead of answering comments. Whatever, we'll see. Saturday, October 28th, 2008 a.m. You have understood the true meaning of life. On this point, it could be said that incarnation is successful. You know what you must do and where you must go. Many of your fellow human beings have not reached that point. Understanding the how and the why is an advantage. One still has to go in the right direction. To hold one's course in spite of everything denotes great wisdom. In your tortured civilizations, many human beings are confused and lose their sense of reality. Everything is artificial and misleading. You are all constantly assailed by aggressive pictures and sounds. It's not easy in such conditions to keep one's own balance. Inner peace is accordingly threatened by this dangerous ambient excitement. Everything is disconcerting for human beings who move away from the true values as they are caught in this pseudo-culture. Wise ones who manage to protect themselves are deserving. The nomads who advance in the desert have to fight against the natural elements. They know where they stand. They are not cut off from life. From this presence that lives in them has difficulty coping with the welter of modern life. Welter of modern life. The true nature of each one can emerge in spite of everything in this mad world. This is the challenge that humanity today must meet. Babaji, very, I mean, we all know this is true, right? So the next one, the majority of people that do the meditation don't really see this or want to deal with it. It's kind of funny. Saturday, October 28th, 2010 a.m. Countries that are said to be underdeveloped in terms of technology and economic expansion are sometimes better off on the point that we have just mentioned. What remains are harsh living conditions, hunger, the sometimes total absence of humanitarian aid, and many other tragedies that are not excluded even from your so-called advanced civilization. Misery is more hidden, but just as dramatic. Eden on earth does not exist. Whatever the culture or level of industrialization, The latter is not a remedy for poverty. It doesn't share the same resulting profits equitably. No system is perfect, no more in this domain than in politics. A civilization that moves away from the true values is a lost civilization. It condemns itself. Sooner or later, it will be necessary to go back to square one. These comments will seem to be complete nonsense to you all, and you will probably won't have to experience a reality. But you should know that what knowingly destroys nature must in turn perish. This is the rigorous cosmic law. It preserves the balance of the universe and manifests itself inexorably, Babaji. So, there's that one too. Okay, so then here is the following one. Sunday, October 29th, 2008 a.m. We have been drawing your attention to the ravages of pollution for a long time. Governments hide the seriousness of the situation. Having enough to eat is a problem for many individuals on Earth, but one day soon it will become widespread, even for those who are well off. Pollution is in the soil, in the air you all breathe and around the globe. These different kinds of pollutions overlap and will bring about increasing difficulties, particularly with regard to food. Political leaders will not be able to bury their heads in the sand indefinitely. Talking about these cases of sick cows is not enough. In the future, all animals will know difficulties of this nature. The plant kingdom is not spared. To a lesser extent, it shows similar risks due to farming methods that add to the various forms of pollution. If agriculture, livestock farming, and all issues related to food are not reviewed and corrected in a radical way, there will be serious problems. More and more, you should all be very vigilant about your nutrition. Your health hinges on it, Babaji. So, there's that one as well. So I just sent that to my wife. She gets these as well. But she was just sent me something. This guy was talking about how trees are dying. And they're talking about this guy, some Amish guy, trees. And then he had a whole long thing from RFK Jr. talking about this. And so I didn't really watch the video because, it's either happening or it's not. And the guy didn't have a solution for it. But, these are all, possibilities. Okay, so that's it for these for today. I might read a few more tomorrow and then add them to this, depending, or I might just do some comments, depending on what happens. But anyways, these sort of speak for themselves. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely point for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.